And a great, great good evening, Monday, December the 16th. Just how many more days would that be? 4 and 5, 9 shopping days left for Christmas. I remember that song that we used to hear. Um, what was it again? Let me see if I could remember. It used to talk about those. Have you, time is flying, time is flying. Have you done your Christmas buying? Time is flying. Soon it will be Christmas Day. Just 9 more shopping days left, or something like that. But welcome this evening to the Marcy Week Show. It's a pleasure to have you with us and to greet every single one of you of the loyal opposition to this another show with the Marcio Weeks team and our CARICOM team. I think tonight, Monday nights, is becoming known for a CARICOM setting. So I guess we are falling into that kind of an alignment. So if that is the case, well, so be it. But good evening and welcome, loyal opposition, all of you that are joining us tonight from around the world, from the diaspora, whether you're in Canada, the United States, United Kingdom, Belgians are everywhere. I remember years ago, I ran into a rum shop in Paris. I was on a European tour many, many years ago and came upon a rum shop in Paris, a Bajan rum shop selling monkey rum. All right, so Bajans are everywhere, everywhere. And so we want to welcome you tonight. It's a joy to have all of you joining us. Good evening to you, Vernon and Judy Jilts. Pleasure to have you. And last night was really lovely. It's always such a joy for us to meet the people that we see on the show only in terms of your names listed and your comments. And we're mindful that not all the people that are on the show do comment, so not everybody does. So it's a real joy for us to be able to meet you and shake your hand, get to know you, give you a hug. And we really appreciate the love that is shared and the comments that are made with regards to this show. So, in just a few moments, we're going to be rolling into it. We're going to have an exciting show tonight. We have some really, really powerful subjects to deal with, things even including some of the aspects of violence and crime, and don't forget that $560 leg ham. We're gonna touch a little bit on that because I do know that Marcy and the others dealt with that at length. I think Friday and Sunday. Well, not Sunday because we took kind of a break last night because it was the benefit concert for Amaya, and we want to keep encouraging you to support this young lady. She has to get a liver transplant. My understanding is that that liver transplant is going to cost her over 50,000 US dollars, and that's just for the transplant. That's just for the liver. That's for the operation. That has nothing to do with the accompanying expenses, which are going to be ranging in terms of air transport. You're going to have hotel accommodations. You're going to have to pay taxis and on the ground transportation and everything. And I dare say, when you put it all together, it could be very expensive. My understanding is that it's likely to happen in Colombia, where she has to travel to in order to have this operation done. And as you can see on the screen, if they can make it just a little bigger, you can see that if you are willing to donate to her these efforts and to her operation for her liver, that you can give her a call. You can, sorry, not a call. You can contribute um, to the effort at the CIBC Caribbean First Caribbean Bank on Broad Street. The account holder's name is Ryan Yearwood, and the account number is there 100-125-9699. So if you are willing to assist Amaya with this liver operation, then you can certainly give her a contribution, a donation at the CIBC Broad Street First Caribbean Bank in Bridgetown. All right. And the transplant is likely to be Okay, I'm getting a correction here. The transplant is likely to be more. Now, is that 250,000 Barbados dollars? I want to believe that it is 250,000 Barbados dollars. The full amount is not yet determined, so I'm corrected in that. I was saying 50,000 US. That's just 100,000 Barbados dollars, but I made it understand it's around 250,000 dollars. All right, and it's not surprising because one of my sons, he has a challenge with very narrow nasal passages, and he has to do an operation. There are only two places in the world that perform the type of operation that he needs, and one of the places is Abu Dhabi, and the other one is actually Colombia as well. And it's 100,000 plus Barbados dollars just for the nasal operation here. We're dealing with a comprehensive opportunity and transplant for this young lady. So this is not a simple operation. This is very complicated and I dare say in itself quite dangerous. So we're looking at 100,000, $250,000, and it is urgent. It's really, really urgent. Beautiful little girl. Had an opportunity of meeting her last night, and sharing with her and the dad, and we were so blessed, to see the people that turned out. And we want to ask you for your continued support. If you're picking this up in other parts of the world, you may not even be a resident of Barbados, from any other part of the world. If your heart is moved toward assisting her, please. The information is on the screen. You can always scroll back, because if you're watching this on YouTube, you can always rewind back and just get all the information from right there. Okay, so we want to keep her in our prayers, and we want to remind you, wherever you are, wherever you can share it on whatever social media platform you're on. If you're on X, if you're on WhatsApp or Signal, Telegram, Facebook, and God knows how many others. We want you to be able to share that information concerning Amaya. Okay, so we want to continue welcoming Owen Hines and Jacqueline Aline, Nina 512. A pleasure to have you with us. God bless you, Nadira. Great to have you with us again tonight. Yes, I did see that. I did see that, Nina. I'm just going to leave that alone for now. Flo Joe, great to have you with us. Jefferson Sobers, good night. Sir Alfred Benjamin from Brooklyn, New York. As I said to you, Sir Alfred, I wish I had a little more notification, and I had been able to reach out to you a bit more when we were up in Washington, D.C. I know that, people talk about places and they think that they're so close in the United States, but in truth and in fact, um, the reality is that we are so far away sometimes when you think you're so close. But nevertheless, we are glad to see you locked on from Brooklyn, New York. Easy D, good night to you as well. Marie Watson, good evening, and thank you, Marie. God bless you. Appreciate your comment. Mac Bolan, pleasure to have you with us tonight. Supreme Being and Tony Paris, Lemuel Tell. There's Marcia. I was wondering where you were, Marcia, because I'm always looking for you to keep me on my toes when it comes to that national anthem. All right, all you loyal opposition sons and daughters, Marcia, wishing you all a Merry Christmas. Tony Paris, a pleasure to have you with us tonight as well. Emerson Bab, good night to you from the United Kingdom. I don't know, Emerson, is it chilly up there? I don't know. I'm going to stay down here because we're getting some pretty cold weather. We're getting some cold fronts coming down into the Caribbean from up north, and beginning to cool things down a lot for the Christmas season. Wendy Ford Griffith, a pleasure to have you with us again tonight, ma'am. Monica Ince, really great to have you. And Lyric Lewis Jilts and V. Hoy. Yes, thank you so very much for being here with us tonight. Now we're up to 231, and as you know, I always try to get into that national anthem by the time we clear about 200 or 210 people. So I'm going to ask Dave to just prep that national anthem, get it ready, and in a few seconds we're going to be sharing that national anthem. We'll all be standing to attention and respecting our national anthem, our country, and our flag. So Dave, just going to let you go with the national anthem this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we stand to attention for the national anthem of Barbados. Oh, yes, yes, the national anthem of our great country, Barbados. And now we want to repeat our national pledge this evening as we commit ourselves to the sovereignty of our beautiful and great nation. I pledge allegiance to my country, Barbados, and to my flag, to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living to do credit to my nation wherever I go. These fields and hills beyond recall are now our very own. We own them. And I dare say that over the past several years, there has been much fear and trepidation concerning losing the ownership of these fields and hills beyond recall. But I'm here to tell you tonight that there are people in this country who are going to defend and protect the sovereignty and the well being of our nation. And this program is going to continue to do just that. You know, over the last couple of days, there are some anonymous people, and I want to ask the Prime Minister and the members of Parliament of the Barbados Labour Party to ask your people to stop putting anonymous letters in my mailbox. I come very close to the point of taking them out the mailbox and just tearing them up without looking at them. And I want to say to you, I have given this one a chance to come to the forefront. They put this one in my mailbox in their rear. Now, I guess I have to be very careful. They tell me the source of this is Starcom Network. So I can only tell you what was put in my mailbox, something to do with the Chase files. I don't know what all that is, but it tells me about some government minister who won a libel suit against a gentleman and his company, collectively awarded more than $400,000 in damages after winning a defamation suit. And I believe they put that there based on the content of the short note that they wrote me, with the intent of trying to scare us into silence. Look, let me be clear. There is nobody under the sun that is going to silence this show. Get that through your thick skull. If you don't understand it, get it through your thick skull. We are going to scuttle the cybercrime bill while the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights advised the government to return to the people for additional consultation. There are steps that can be taken to make the government deal with the reviewing and shifting and changing of the cybercrime bill. So don't think for a moment, because you haven't heard anything in recent days, that this matter of the cybercrime bill has gone silent and dormant. It hasn't. Trust me, it hasn't. So for all of you who like to keep putting anonymous mail, and you are an embarrassment to our country because you don't have the intestinal fortitude to put your name on the thing. I am here. I am Dr. Ferdinand Nichols, honorary doctorate as a result of my ministry and involvement in Christian ministry over the past 45 years. You know my name. You know who I am. You know Marcia Weeks. You know Glenn Murray. You know Rose Corbin. You know Kemar Stewart and Maxine McLean. You know all the names. You don't have the intestinal fortitude to affix your name to any correspondence. Don't put it in my mailbox. Because let me see. As a matter of fact, I may very well instruct the post office, don't send nothing to me that don't have a return address on the envelope. Don't put it in my mail. And I will tell the postman, don't put it in my mailbox. Because if you don't have the intestinal fortitude to affix your name to this, you don't have any moral integrity to discuss a single thing with any of us, including myself. And then they include some foolishness about CARICOM commends Barbados leadership on the global stage. That's the problem. You're being commended on the global stage, but you're being chastised on the local one. When I go around this country, nobody is commending you on any stage in this country except your lackeys who are too blindly following you to tell you the truth. The difference between your lackeys and this program, this show, is that we speak the truth whether you like it or not. And that's why you created the cybercrime bill. How many of you all remember that young gentleman that they wanted to put in the Senate and couldn't get in the Senate, getting in a Christchurch meeting and talking about protecting our ministers from attacks? But if you can't, this is what my mother used to say, if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen. It is as simple as that. And many of you are lawyers, and you know when you get into court, you have the defense and the prosecutor and the judge, and you have to face the fire. You have to defend your client, and you have to prosecute the client, the person in there, and the judge has to rule at the end of the day, or the jury. You don't get a pass to get away from that. That is foolishness. So listen, if you don't have the intestinal fortitude, and I know they watch this show, I know you're watching this show, I know whoever you are that put this rubbish in my mailbox, whoever you are, you watch this show. I am telling you now, don't put anything in any mail or mailbox to send to me without your name affixed. If I get it and I open it and I don't see a name, I am not even reading it. I am going to tear it up and throw it straight in the garbage. Let me get that clear. The only reason I haven't done it with this one tonight is because I wanted to hold this and show people the foolishness that is going on in this country at the moment when people oppose you and when people don't agree with you. It is called wokeism. That's what it is. It's called far left, where people want to silence you, censor you, shut you down and shut you up because you do not agree with something that they are saying or promoting or something of that nature. Now, I am always careful, as all of our guests are, including Marcia herself, that we do not put this show at risk, and we do not put Marcia at risk accusing anyone of anything. I will say to you, if the shoe fits, wear it. Don't try to get away from it, because we also have attorneys at law that will defend us, okay? We also have international attorneys that will defend us, just like the international attorney that the government brought to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights hearing and did not have the intestinal fortitude to carry a local attorney to represent the government of Barbados. And I thought of luminaries like Sir David Simmons, a luminary in the law. As a matter of fact, one of the persons involved in the development of the cybercrime bill, and he was not even present at that commission. And you're going to bring in some individual, I'm going to be very polite, some individual from Europe, a colonial setting, when you have gone through independence, declared republicanism, and then you are going to pomposet all over the world and chastise leaders of taking advantage of these countries in which we live and so on. Then you're going to go and bring a European colonial lawyer into the commission, into the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to represent the government of Barbados, a black government in a Republican country, in an independent country, cutting the vestiges of colonialism. Well, if that isn't hypocrisy, I don't know what is. So please, in future, don't put none of this foolishness in my mailbox. Don't put it in the mail to send it to me. I'm warning you. The first thing that's going to happen to it when I open it is that I am going to tear it up. I am not going to read it, so don't bother to send it to me. Okay, well, get that clear. Okay, so since we have dealt with that, let me move on to a couple of other things, because you would have seen from the advertising of this show that one of the things that we spoke about says, you see something wrong, open your mouth. That is what we hear. Now, I sent you, Dave, a clip of the Prime Minister speaking. And I want the people, because I am not saying this. The Prime Minister speaks of corruption high and low. I don't know. I am not accusing anybody of anything. But the Prime Minister said it. And in case you don't believe me, Dave, I'm going to ask you to play that clip for me, please, so that the people of the loyal opposition and whoever else can hear what the Prime Minister spoke from her mouth. And I may ask you to stop it at some points so that I can take up what she has said. Let it roll, please, sir.
The voices of accountability. This beacon encourages every Bajan to speak up and take responsibility when they see something going wrong in this country, in their community.
Pause it. You heard what she said? Every Bajan to speak up when they see something going wrong in this country. But then when we want to speak up, you want to incite a cybercrime bill to shut the people up when they see something going wrong. You think the only place we see something going wrong is from the Barbados Labour Party government position? No, we are seeing a lot of things going wrong from the citizens of Barbados position when it comes to the digital ID, when it comes to even taxes at the gas at the pump, when it comes to the importation of guns and weapons into this country. We are seeing a lot of things going wrong. Something has gone drastically wrong when this year, I don't know if you have a picture of it, Dave, but this year, a leg ham is 560 Barbados dollars. Something is wrong. So we are speaking up. Let it roll, Dave.
In their houses, in their jobs. It embodies the idea that accountability isn't just for leaders, but for every citizen.
Whoa. You heard what she said? It's not just for leaders. It means it's for leaders plus accountability. Madam Prime Minister, are you hearing your own words? Are you listening? Why don't you come to the people of Barbados in a public conference, not parliament, if you had the intestinal fortitude, give the people of Barbados an account for the expenditure of the money, not parliament. Don't get in, one of the things I don't like with politicians is that they like to hide responsibility on enough fancy sounding, highfalutin words that a lot of people don't understand and don't know. So if you're going to talk about accountability from not only the leaders, your own words, ma'am. Go ahead, Dave.
Reminds us of corruption in high and low places only to remind us that because we
What did she just say? Corruption in high and low places. That is the Prime Minister speaking, not Dr. Ferdinand. Do not sue me for libel. That is your Prime Minister speaking. She is speaking of corruption in high places and in low places. Now, normally when people express something to do with high places, they're talking from the Prime Minister down. The Prime Minister, the President, the head of defense security, the members of parliament, the members of Senate. Those are the people we see in high places, the CEOs, the judges, the governors and all the CEOs and general managers and all the highfalutin people. That is high places. I did not say the Prime Minister is involved in corruption. The Prime Minister herself has said there's corruption in high and low places. I just heard her say that. Go ahead, Dave.
Have a colonial mentality. We see only the oppression that is above us and not the oppression that is among us.
Okay, hold it. We see only the oppression that is above us and not the oppression that is among us. But the fact of the matter is that a bully is a person who has a greater authority and power than a lesser individual. And so more often than not, oppression comes from on top. I don't recall in the entire history of slavery that the oppressors of the slaves were people from within their own ranks, except that they were oppressed by the colonial masters to oppress their own kind. And that is what we have seen in our Caribbean territories. That is what we have seen in our experience and in our history when it comes to slavery. And it continues because and this is the example you set. You see, you got to be very careful that you don't shoot yourself in your own foot. You bring a European lawyer in to represent your government against your people. Roll the clip, Dave.
Silence in the face of patent wrongdoing is not just acceptable, it is dangerous.
Whoa!
It is destructive.
In the face of blatant wrongdoing. Blatant wrongdoing. $60 million spent on a housing project. We can't see the houses. 80-something million spent in a sewage development perspective. We ain't getting no results. 200 and something million borrowed at the beginning of the administration to do infrastructural repairs and roads and all of that, and you can only see 1 or 2 roads being done. You know, I asked myself the question. I turned to my wife the other day, and I'm gonna have to curtail my segment in a minute to get on to my next guest, who you all know very well. But I asked my wife the other day. I said, you know, honey, I wonder what these people at the Ministry of Transport or work is do all day long when they go to work. Because you're driving on roads, you don't see the markings to tell you when you're not on your side or on somebody else's side. You don't see markings on the road to tell you when you should stop. You see a stop sign, but there are no markings to see. You can hardly tell the markings going around or roundabout. You don't see any illuminated markings at night. You ever try driving on a Barbadian road at night when the rain falling? The entire road is jet black from end to end. You cannot see a highlighted reflector anywhere. You drive on the highway, you can't even tell how close you are to the Jersey barriers in the center of the road. What do they do all day long when we are all working hard? What are they doing? Go ahead, Dave.
And speaking up respectfully and more importantly, speaking truth.
Good, stop.
Becomes a civic.
Speaking up respectfully and even more importantly, speaking truth. When we come on this program, we vet ourselves, you know. That's why we hear videos like this. We vet ourselves. We don't come on here and open up our mouths and just talk foolishness and set ourselves up for libel lawsuits. We come on this program. We come every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday, every Sunday. We come on here with the whole perspective, a whole perspective of truth. And the problem with politicians is that they can't handle truth because they walk with so many lies for so long that when the truth steps up and slaps them in the face, they can't cope with it. So we have to stop that. It's called the cybercrime bill. Now, I want to be clear before I welcome our first guest. I want to be clear. We have no problems with the cybercrime bill per se, but there are segments that we have major issues with. It has been expressed, and the response of this caring and loving government is to increase the criminalization of its citizens and increase the fine from $70,000 to $100,000 when they say something that hurts their feelings or offends them or causes them pain. Oh, God help us. God help us. God help us. Dave, I can just stop there for now. I don't know how much more people can take in terms of that. Um, Thank you. Somebody has written to me already and told me don't throw away the letters, had it to a handwriting expert, and they will tell me if the same person is penning them and so on. Thank you very much for that information. I'm not so good in all of that kind of stuff, all right? But nevertheless, let me redeem the time and let me welcome our first guest tonight, the Honorable Rose Corbin. Let me welcome you, Rose. It's a pleasure to have you joining us this evening. I know that whenever you come on the show, it's going to be, as we would say in church, it's going to be fire and brimstone. Um, going to be fire and brimstone, and it's going to be an education. And I know that you're going to be sharing some great things with us tonight, and I am looking forward to sharing tonight with you and several other great guests that are going to be joining us later on. So, good night to you, Rose. Welcome to the Marcy Week Show on Monday, December the 16th. Just 9 shopping days left for Christmas.
And all I want for Christmas is
My two front teeth. I got mine. I have mine. As a little
I have
space, but I
mine
have
too.
mine too. And these are real.
Mine too. Oh,
Good
good
evening, my
night.
dear. Good evening.
Good night, my dear colleague. Good night, good night, good night, good night to the loyal sons and daughters all, firm craftsmen of our faith. Oh, what a pleasure to be with you and to share with you from our hearts, from our
Yes.
passion, from our commitment to our nation, Barbados, and specifically and to the wider region and beyond, because our hearts are full of love and compassion for people generally. That is why we are here tonight. And I'm going to jump right in it. I've been doing some reminiscing and reflecting, and I want to ask you, Pastor Ferdy, and the others out there, when you think of the village or the community in which you grew up, what are the things that still remain with you? The sights and scenes in the community, the people, the landmarks. Surely, Pastor Ferdinand, I have heard you many times talked about driving to St. Joseph and coming back with a car full of breadfruit and yams and
Oh,
eddies
yeah.
and
Oh,
bananas
yes.
that you all didn't have even anywhere to sit. Some of them were on
That
your
is
lap.
true. That is
But
true.
um, share with us briefly where you would have grown up and what that community looked like back then. Can you?
Wow, wow. Well, Rose, with a mother that was a principal of primary schools, you would imagine that we moved around a bit. But I do recall my early years in Sweet Bottom, Sweet Vale, St. George, where we lived, where I think there was a shop there not long ago. I remember running up through the cane piece behind the house when the canes were cut and sliding on all of the cane trash. We didn't have all the technology. We grew up living outdoors. We enjoyed a lot of our life outdoors. And then I remember on regular instances going to St. Joseph with my dad and my mom down Bashiba to fish. I used to sit on the corner where they have just put up the play part down there on top of wrong rock hill, just on top of the hill there, getting my hair cut at the turn to go into Atlantis, getting my hair cut there on the side of the street, going in the houses up the road, getting the fish. Oh my goodness, going into Coffee Gully where my grandfather lived. I didn't know my grandparents very well. I was really small when they passed away. So I never really got to know my grandparents. And I remember, all of these fruit trees. My uncle lived at a home right opposite the new police station at the top of Horse Hill. What is it called now? Name after some fella in some senator or somebody in the United States. I don't know why they did that. They couldn't find yeah,
Holder.
some holder guy. I am sure they should have been able to find a Barbadian to name it after. But anyhow, I will leave that. And he lived up there. I remember going down in the gully with the anthurium lilies and oh my goodness. And then in Boscobel, Rose, Boscobel Girls' School on the pasture, Guy Fawkes Day, with the tires on top of the windmill and pulling my cane trucks made with ball bearings and oh my goodness. And I remember, I was in my early 30s when the first electronic toy I ever got, I still had. It was a robot. It was a robot that you could put batteries in and it would walk by itself. That was my first electronic toy. And then of course
Wow.
we had those games, that you would put a fellow with a stick and turn
Yes.
him toward a question, and then you would take him and put him on the other side on a glass like a magnet, and he would spin and move around, and I didn't know how they did it, but it would come right to the answer that you wanted. So I have some fond memories. Boscobel, Haggett's factory with my father. With I don't remember the gentleman's name. He was a light brown skinned driver of the Chevrolet left-hand drive truck that used to take us to school in the morning from down in the bottom of St. Andrew. Oh my goodness. People think I grew up with a gold spoon in my mouth, but I didn't. I grew up having the hard knocks and rubbing shoulders with the poor, all through people who could not afford things, didn't even have food. I used to sit in my mother's office and watch my mother help feed with the lunch that she took to school children who came to school in the morning without any breakfast, and she would share her food with them. But back in those days, the residence of the principal was on the same location as the school, and so she would even cook and bring a car. Oh, Rose, oh good, and I could go on and on, but you told me in just a couple of minutes.
And I relived it with you. I relived it with
Oh,
you.
wonderful, wonderful times.
And I'm sure so many others who are listening in our age group in their 50s um, would remember such things and would remember life in a community, especially a small community.
Let me take a correction here. Let me take a correction. But I completely slipped me. But somebody's reminding me that Eric Holder is a Barbadian. So I retract my statement.
He's
And
not a Barbadian as far
but
as I
but
know. His
but that's what I
father
am
is.
told. His
His
father's a
father
Barbadian.
is. His father was
Okay,
a Barbadian, and
okay.
he said his father brought him to Barbados uh, many, many a years. He would visit Barbados often. Yes? Are we still
Yes,
on?
I'm here. Yeah, we're still on. We're still on. I just
Yes,
heard a little
please.
bit of an emergency, so I just slipped out for a minute. But go right
Yes,
ahead.
yes, please. And why I asked you to reminisce is that tonight, I'm going to do a little reminiscing, but tinged with some sadness. As you know, audience and fellow loyal daughters and sons of Barbados, I often boast that I grew up in a village called Church Village in St. Philip. And it saddened me when I saw in the headlines in one of the newspapers, Church Village under lockdown. And this evening, I shifted from what I had planned to talk to some issues surrounding that. And I'll be very careful given the sensitivity of the matter. When I think of Church Village, I think of a community. I would have grown up in Church Village in the 50s, the 60s, and I moved away in the 80s. But I always remained in Church Village and visit Church Village regularly because my grandmother, my uncle, my great uncle, my cousin, and my friends lived in Church Village. So I would visit often. I would go to the Pilgrim Holiness Church, which was in what we call the Bat Village under the breadfruit tree. Now it's called Shekinah, right there opposite St. Philip's Primary School. When I think of Church Village, I think of St. Philip Parish Church. I think of across from St. Philip Parish Church where there's a basketball court, what
And
used to
sorry
be
to
the
cross
St.
you,
Philip
Rose.
Boys School.
The organist at St. Philip's Parish Church was my godfather.
Yes. I come further up and to the left by the junction, across for the junction is Miss Pounder Shop. Used to be Miss Pounder Shop. And through that alley, you would find the Quaker Village. And further down, you'll see a two-story wall house. That's where you would go to the vestry to get your documents, to get social services done right there. When I come around that corner onto Shekinah, St. Philip's Girls' School, where I attended up until 1967 when I left at 10 years old, 9 years old, sorry, for a Sparta exam. As you move up the Garner land where the Jehovah Witness Church is, and on the right-hand side, up on the hill, that used to be the bath, the public bath, the standpipe, where many fights broke out, where many had fun, where many had their baths if they wanted, you know, a good shower. The bath, and Mr. Gittins used to take care of the bath. That facility somehow became converted into an establishment known for activity that was of some concern to the community of Church Village. It became a loitering spot. It became a spot where it was known that persons hung around to smoke and to access illegal drugs, marijuana spliffs. That is what I was told. I would drive by, I would see the activity. Then we continue on to what we call Dodds Pastor. And we come around to the new government housing era, which was not there in my time. All of that was field, agricultural land, pasture. And from there, you can look upward and see Somerville and Dodds, Dodds, which now is the prison. You come around and you come back down Coxhill with the Christian Union Mission Church on the right. You came to the Mr. Waldron, the shoemaker who patched many shoes so that we could go to school, my shoes. We had to tailor Mr. Strawn. We had to tailor Mr. Nightingale. Mr. Strawn and Nightingale were the JPs who signed many documents for persons who could only write their X. We come down, we got the Garner shop where the Garner Spencer sisters live and their brother Vincent Garner. And they're owned now all to the right where I am going and where our house was found. My grandmother's house, which subsequently became my mother's, which I renovated for my mother's, and being her only child, which I inherited. At the corner along there, we would have the manifold shop. We would have the community shops, Mr. Holder's shop. Down in the gap across from the bath, you had the manifolds. They were very posh people. They were she was one of the earliest vendors of the Nation News. They had a piano and they used to play classical music. Down there, we had the dance club. Down there, you had Miss Tarp's shop. You continue up now when you're going to Church Village. You had Wharton, Brother Wharton Church, which the floor was shaky, but it never fell in under the weight or the stamping of the feet and the dancing in the spirit. You continue up the village, up to Clifton Hill. And anytime you get a chance, that hill was rocky. It was scary. I remember as a young girl coming home from church in the Pastor Taylor's van. And Martin, who is a well-known bus driver of St. Philip, now retired, he would stick the van in the middle of this hill, put it in neutral, and give us the milkshake before milkshake became popular. And if you continue up that hill anytime, go up that hill and just pause, and you will have the most panoramic view of St. Philip Christ Church, parts
Yes,
of St. George.
beautiful.
And if you go to the cul-de-sac, to the harbor, that's my church village. Then you come down and you go into what you call the back village, where to your left you see the quarries, you see some place we call Marshall Hall, all down in the lower village. All that constitutes St. Philip North. And then when you get to the junction, you look right. And to the right across the road, there was an establishment that would sell bottled gas. When the people in the community start acquiring gas stoves. And if you look across from that junction up on the hill, that used to be a very small chattel house like most houses. And it has expanded into a mausoleum owned by one of those persons that many persons have been upset with, who was invited to the opening of Parliament. And Cadswell will always speak out about those individuals who were given preferential treatment and invitations to attend the opening of Parliament, while his wife couldn't go because he couldn't get a ticket invitation for her. So she had no opportunity to show off her pretty dress, new bag, and hat. Caswell will always lament about that. But there is an establishment right there in Cox Hill, known by one of the persons, and to protect the credibility of this show, I shall not call names, except to say that it was owned by the Pinders, some of whom the girls I went to school with at St. Philip's Girls. From that same household, although it is alleged that there are certain activities that would originate there. From that same household, I want to tell the public that household produced at least 3 or 4 pastors.
Wow.
One of them, a young girl whom my grandmother adopted, my mother, sorry, adopted a young pastor who loves the Lord. So that household has produced the very good, if I could say that. I always tell my students, don't say very good. Don't qualify good with very or very bad. It's either good or it's either bad. It produced the good men and women of God, pastors and ministers, and the not so good, the Pender household. Now, if you come straight back down from Coxhill, you come straight back down Chapel to your right, you turn left again at the end of the junction, the road, and you are back to the beginning of Church Village. I have fond memories of Church Village. And now to hear that Church Village was under lockdown, under the eyes of the task force and the Barbados police service for activities that were in the past unknown to the village. We were genteel people like any village in Barbados. Genteel, family-oriented, neighborly. If neighbors didn't speak because of whatever reason, the children had to speak to the neighbors. We could not afford to be rude. I grew up in a neighborhood, yes, there were rocks thrown. Yes, the police came through on the horse and later on the bicycle to warn. But never before was my village caught up with such activities that have occurred, dare I say, for over 2.5 decades, unhindered, under the radar, under the telescope. People could see. Authorities knew, but no one intervened until we are hearing of these activities that are now brought to court and charges are being made and arrests are being made. That's not my church village. I remember during the 2018 elections, I went to that establishment which occupies the space of the former bath facilities, public baths, and they have been taken over by, as I said, young men who spend their days and their hours smoking, loitering, and unknown. That activity, Pastor Ferdinand, lawlessness, loitering on the block was unheard of in Church Village, as in most villages and communities in Barbados. When you leave school, go and look for work. It seems as though when you leave school, hang out there. And it was in there that I ventured on 2 occasions to speak to the youth, not necessarily to get their vote under the banner of Solutions Barbados, but to speak with them, to share with them what the pending elections 2018 would bring to them and to this nation. While I was there on one occasion, the brother of Bounty, known as Fox, a nice man, he passed about a year and some now, turned up. He got a message that I was there and turned up, and he, rushed into my activity without introducing himself and interrupted. I swiftly put him in his place and said, it's not done like that. Introduce myself, tell him, sit down, keep quiet, listen and learn. He did. And then he asked me questions. He said, so we're not hearing the truth. If the dead could talk, I know he would come back and say that. They're not telling the truth. I thought when we get the IMF funds that it will be distributed amongst us. We can see it. I had walked with frequently asked questions on a little leaflet, and I sat and I read it to them. He was very cordial, and in the presence of others, Pastor Ferdinand, he asked me if I needed money to help me with my canvassing and my mission. He asked me like this, you want money? I can help you, I can give you. And I said,
that looks familiar.
Yeah, oh yes, that's what he did. And I have persons who accompanied me who could say, yes, that happened. And I told him, if I take from you, you will own me. I will owe you and you will own me. And he said, you can't be serious. And he asked me why I now come out. And from his mouth, he said that they were supporting the incumbent for many years. And now they want the incumbent out. And they are going with this administration. Now, if poor little me was asked if I want this, don't you think those who they went with before and who they were going with in 2018, they did not ask if they want this? And Pastor Ferdinand, do you think they were like me and said no? That is why I am concerned about the association that candidates have with businesses and individuals. And we do know the saying, if you sleep with dogs, you get what?
You get fleas.
And Barbados has a lot of political persons walking around with dog fleas. They slept with the dogs and the dog fleas all over them. And unfortunately, those to whom the slogan was received, give her the vote and watch me, got some of the dog fleas itching them. And they don't have any repellent to get rid of those dog fleas. You know, we were also told that birds of a feather flock together. You know that we were also told you are known by the company you keep. Therefore, go back to videos and you will see that the company, this administration on entering the House of Parliament, the company they carried with them. Dare we say then that they are known by the company they keep, and can we deduce from that the type of company and the assistance they would have received? The late Fox Pender told me that for years, consecutive years, they were supporting the incumbent, and now they have shifted to the ones who were running for government in 2018, those in red. Now, I am going to share something with you, Pastor Ferdinand, that I want the public to be aware. I want to share it.
And
I
you're going
was
to have to
trying
be
to remember.
quick you're going to have to be
Yes,
quick in
I'll
sharing
do
it
it.
because my next guest is all lined up at the starting gate to go.
Yes, I will do it quickly.
Lovely.
I can't remember the date, but it was in early 2020, I think, pre-COVID lockdown. And I went as I was trying to get the date because the Sunday was the day my great nephew was dedicated, and I took the role as the new matriarch of that side of the family. All the others have passed. And the night before, around 2 o'clock, the Saturday night, we would call it the Saturday night, but it was early the Sunday morning, I woke up crying uncontrollably. My husband got up, asked me what was wrong. I told him I just saw a drive-by shooting in Church Village. A drive-by shooting by where the Pender establishment in the Bath facility is. A young boy was shot down and others injured. I said, but what is startling? I heard a clear voice saying, go to Church Village today and warn them. I went to the dedication at Apostles Canterbury's church in Spicestown. He knows my husband very well, and he asked us, to give a greeting. And I told him about the dream. I didn't tell them where it was going, but I was going into a community to warn some young men. Pastor Ferdinand, in the dream, I saw the shirt the young man was wearing and the complexion of the young man's skin. I asked a fellow member of my church, Abundant Life, to accompany me, a male. The three of us went. My husband is male and myself. On entering the shop, the establishment, I saw the same young man, the same complexion, the same church shirt as in the dream, from which I was awakened crying. I spoke to the young men who were there and I told them what I dreamt. I asked some of them if they knew the Lord Jesus as their Savior. Some said yes, but they not go to church anymore. I told them, get back to the Lord. I encouraged them. And the young man, whenever I sought to speak to him, he looked at me, looked off, and had an attitude. I prayed for him. I stood on the door of the establishment and raised my voice and I prayed for Church Village. I prayed that peace would reign in Church Village, that peace would return to Church Village. And in the stillness of the afternoon, people came out and said, I knew that was Rosie. I knew that was Rose I felt. The young man paid no attention to me. Was he not the same young man that was shot in the car and that was Bounty Pender's son? I am crying now. I wonder what more I could have done. And now to know that as a result of that death, there were other murders. I ask you, not like the Prime Minister asked Pastor Ferdinand in the clip that you have shown, but I ask my fellow Barbadians to be watchmen, to pray, to seek out young people. That young man ignored me. He was wearing the same shirt that I described before I went up there to my husband and the gentleman. I said, I am going for a young man who is wearing this color shirt, who is of this complexion. But you know his arrogance?
Mm.
My father has power. We have a grip on everybody. So I am the untouchable. Just like how the mafias that we see in movies behave. And we see in biographical movies, their children felt that they were untouchable. That young man did not even pay me the slightest attention. When I connected after his death, without speaking before to the gentleman who accompanied me, we visited him. And as he opened the door to see me, he fell to the ground unconsolably weeping and bawling and said, Rose, you know who that young man is who was shot down in the car? That is the young man you left and went to talk to and warn him. Tell him if he isn't careful and the other young men, they will lose their lives. The church village that now is, and it's now known for, it's not the church village I know. And it has changed significantly over 2.5 to 3 decades because persons turned a blind eye and they were afraid to speak. And the Prime Minister could stand in the corridors of Parliament and speak to Barbadians and wag their fingers and say, speak up or wherever protected platform she was on. But would she venture into Church Village, St. Philip, and say the same message? I thank the Barbados Police Service and Task Force and all the vigilant persons who unearthed this matter before Reverend Ferdinand, as we know, the resurrection, before the what's it we call it, when the trumpet sounds. I am glad that the bodies, the remains were unearthed and they found out who the individuals were so that their families can bring closure to that, to the matter. I want to ask our task force and our judicial system not to be bought, not to turn a blind eye, but to expose and to expose more, to discover more, and to bring
And yes,
for
to
the
the
innocent, and to bring the necessary consequences and deserving punishment to those who inflict harm and take lives.
thank
Pastor
you so much.
Ferdinand,
Thank you so
I'm
much,
just
Rhodes.
going off for a moment because
That's
I
okay.
am overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. Yes. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. We understand. I mean, we've seen our country degenerate into so many areas and in so many ways, and it has impacted us all, regardless of where it happens in the country. And I'm sure that our next guest will be able to even shed further light. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a very intriguing time with Glenn, and he's coming in with us right now this evening. Mr. Glenn Murray.
Good night.
Mr. Glenn Murray. Good
Good night,
night,
Doctor.
sir.
Good night, and Doctor Ferdinand, and
Oh,
season's greetings to you.
and season's greetings to you as well, sir. Pleasure to have
And
you joining us tonight. I know you've been listening, and a very heart
uh,
moving
yeah,
presentation there by Rose. So she'll join us back in a few minutes.
yeah. But I wanted to say that I was hoping to get a chance to use an old saying that used to be in Spooners when you tell somebody season's greetings or Merry Christmas, they would say, likewise the same unto you. Likewise the same
The
unto you. That
same
was the
unto you.
stance. Likewise the same. It's like reversing back. Likewise the same unto you, right? So,
Hmm.
and I like to make reference to that to keep that part of my
Let me
spoons.
make a note of that so I can say it back to you. Likewise,
The
back
same.
on to you. The
Likewise
same
the
to
same
you.
unto you, unto you. Yeah.
Yes.
But you and you both you and Rose had some interesting topics. I know you want to piggyback on both of them and use them to, particularly yours as a segue into my topic. My topic is headline: How we want Barbadianize Christmas. And in a way, you touched on it when you talk about how you grew up in the various locations in Barbados and how how you got your first electronic toy robot when you were quite old. And that because, like you said, we built our own toys. We made our own trucks and rollers
Yes.
and scooters,
Yes.
kites,
Yes.
dolls, everything, right? So I got my first store bought toy. I think when it was 10 years old. It was a purple water pistol that my mother gave me 2 shillings. I think it was 2 shillings to go down. They just had the 5 or 10 model store. And I remember it very well because it was the first store to have an escalator. I remember riding this escalator by my first store bought toy, a purple water pistol for 2 shillings or 48 cents. That is one of the highlights of my socialization and growing up. And it shows you how we have changed and prospered and improved in Barbados for many years. I don't think we've done that in the last 4, 5, 6 years. I think seriously, if you ask anybody at all in Barbados, and I don't know any billionaires or millionaires, they will tell you that things are either rougher or worse or tighter. So we have not gotten that. We have not had that continuation of steady improvement in standard of living as we've been accustomed. Because just like the logo of the BLP says, a better life for our people, a better life for our people. That's what all governments are supposed to do. But I wanted to also talk on something about I talk about the water pistol. I I remember also growing up in Spoonerson. One of my favorite memories, one of the things I look forward to was 2 or 3 or 4 days before Christmas. If I saw the postman coming to get riding on his bicycle and coming to our house, I would know we're getting about 15 or 20 or 30 US dollars from the States and we can have a licking Christmas. Was the postman carrying my infrared is 20 or 30 US dollars used to go a long way in those days. But so I want to talk about keeping your house clean. In Spooner, everybody's house was clean at least on the outside for Christmas. Nobody I know ever saw had grass growing around their house. The house would be weeded, grass pulled up, and outside it looked tidy. And that was the time when most people would go to the beach and get sand or get marl and lay around their house to signify Christmas. I know some young people might think we were crazy, but that is all we knew because we were heavy colonialized. We had not grown up in the area where we were taught that we had our own cultural identity. The things we did were not supposed to matter, only the European, the American style things. So we copied other people to the point where we even got sand and things to signify all white Christmas. Thankfully, 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 that is over. I remember too because it so stuck with me that when I worked at the African, started writing about Christmas and whatnot. I remember one of the first things I want a sunshine Christmas. I remember there was an illustrator called Mr. Payne um, who drew an illustration with Santa Claus coming in on BV with a big bag of presents and whatnot. So I always had this thing
Yes.
there showing me the Barbadian innocent. So one of the things that we have done is to incorporate our own music into Christmas. Because prior to that, we had Bing Crosby, I'm
Andy
dreaming about,
Williams.
uh, right? Let it slow, let it slow. That and that's how we
Oh, the
did because
weather outside is frightful,
there you
and the
go.
fire is so delightful. And if we've no place to go, let it snow,
Let it
let it
snow, let
snow,
it
let it
snow, let
snow
it
in
snow.
Barbados.
I had to join you in that. But one of the things we had Christmas trees. The Christmas trees were imported, like they are large, um, they're either artificial or firs, natural trees. And but there were some Barbadians who created their own trees. I'm not sure if you know this. There were people who got
Casuarina.
no. I mean, other people took they couldn't afford. Very few people could afford to buy artificial tree or real tree. So people got piece of casuarina or some other
Yeah, yeah,
shrubbery, right? Okay, they'll
yeah.
put white silver paper or red paper, etc. But there was another person who actually built trees. They got got fiber, dyed the fiber green, twisted it into branches like with wire, and then screwed the
Hmm.
wire into a trunk. And they sold very well. So we had all so I was very pleased that this is probably the 60s, 50s, 60s, where Barbadians had begun to Barbadianize their Christmas their trees. So and that went well for a while. There was a thriving trade. You go in town, go in the markets, or people bring them in neighborhoods and sell them to you. But then that could not compete with the overseas one who obviously were mass produced and therefore died out. Therefore they're sold better because it was cheaper.
And
But
they
but
had a smell.
right, that's right.
They had a
And
nice
and
odor.
and that was it was not only a Christmas tree decoration, but it was a cottage industry. People made good livings at Christmas. We produced our own version
Hmm.
of the Christmas tree. So then, and they also there was a part of that, but now you talk about music. Uh, are you familiar with scrubbers? Do you remember the term scrubbers? Who or what
Hmm.
were scrubbers? Um,
I
what do you
remember the
remember the
term,
scrub?
but you'll refresh my memory.
Okay. No, if scrubbers, basically they were strolling musicians, minstrels who went from house to house, village, and sang Christmas Eve
Oh,
night or Christmas morning. Strolling, we call it
carolers.
not really caroling, not singing the Oh Holy Night song. They're singing Barbadian
Uh,
song, which they largely made up. Just let me check my and there was a mention of it in a book by remember Louis Lynch, the late educationist.
yes, yes.
He wrote a book called The Barbados Book, in which gave a very good piece on the scrubbers. It's one of the first books that came out that identified the Barbadian cultural um, artifacts and manifestation in a cogent way. And Lunette says the, decla- uh, the decline in the gentle art of scrubbing at Christmas tide, an activity he was at pains to point out had nothing whatsoever to do with the producers. I know Lunette was a man of letters, very a wordsmith of class. He said nothing whatsoever to do with the prodigious feats of manual labor traditionally undertaken at that time of the year to make spick and span every nook and cranny of your house for the festivities. Let's right. So let's explain that instead of refer to the musical activities of those bands of itinerant minstrels who, with more enthusiasm than skill, in other words, they weren't great singers, with more enthusiasm and skill, will want to go from house to house, offering their vocal and instrumental wares freely. That is to say, without restraint. Usually, I'm still quoting Louis Lane, usually remembering three or four persons. Lynch, no, usually numbering three or four persons. Lynch said that what they lack in costly instruments or in harmony and counterpoint, you would know those terms. They're more than made up for in vivacity and dramatic power as they sought to satisfy the primary need of shaking their inevitable, of slaking their, sorry, let me read it. the primary need of slaking the insatiable thirst, so plainly expressed in the parody version of a traditional hymn. This is what they would sing. Hark the herald angels singing, open the ladder and give me something. Peace on earth and mercy mild, two arms for a man and one for a child. That was the kind of that was the kind of that was the activities that they undertook. And then another book, A to Z of Barbados Culture Heritage, written by Sean Carrington, Henry Fraser, and John Gilmore and Attenford, talk about Gilmore. Another part of the offerings of saying the minstrel, the stroller, the scrubber, sorry, was saying, "Good morning to the mistress, good morning to the master, good morning, mistress and master. I never come to boast nor brag, neither take down the flag, but tell you about the morning of our Lord the Savior was born, wishing you a happy Christmas morning." And then they usually end off, "Christmas comes but once a year." Hold on, so I think I know what comes next, but comes. I'm trying to get their versions. Christmas comes but once a year. This page is giving me trouble. Oh, sorry about that. Christmas comes but once a year, and every man must have his share. So open the ladder door, and pass me a beer. Right. So that was the scrubbing. Now that for that kind of musical entertainment, creativity, singing in a Barbadian manner, uh, has been allowed to die out. But there's some people who have some material or even some recordings. I've often said that rather than having, you know what you hear now on the radio for parang?
Yes.
Parang is the Trinidad version of what used to constitute the scrubbers. Understand?
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
we have allowed that to go into virtual oblivion,
Mm-hmm.
and now we've embraced the parang. Love the music, I enjoy it too, but I'm saying that would be made even more meaningful if it had our own Barbadian version, our own Barbadian interpretation, or our own Barbadian presentation. Can you imagine when you listen to what Nicholas Banks has done with that Barbadian medley? Can you imagine if he had ever had a chance, he or people like him or other Barbadian artists had a chance to, and the Barbadian brand and spread to a revision and modernizing, a refashion of the scrubbers, what we might be entertaining?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a pity that we've lost that. We have not retained that tradition. I know we've gone lock, stock, and barrel for Parang. I see there are some attempts for Barbadians. They commend them for still writing Christmas songs with calypso or spood or tut or whatever. I think that is the way we would keep ourselves from being fully colonialized, that we no longer have a Barbadian cultural identity. But that is what we were in the past. When you put the snow and the mile around the house to signify a white Christmas for Barbados. So we've made improvements. For those who probably say we were colonial subjects, that is the way it was, that is the context. We've made changes, we've improved it in some ways, but given the power of the European still, and even more powerful now on North American culture, we have to make sure that whatever that we also have a foot in the door, and we are not just consumers of other people's material, but we're also producing and giving our presentation to the world. So you've never heard scrubbers in action yet?
I haven't heard scrubbers in action. That's the truth. Maybe I'm a little too young.
Well,
some of us on the show are a little older than me. You know, I'm still a
yeah.
child.
Well,
I'm
you don't
still,
know. I just like to. I just like correct way say you don't know
yeah,
what you missed there.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, you know, I spent a few years in Trinidad, and I was familiar with the parang.
Right.
Even before I got to Trinidad, I was familiar with hearing it, and I didn't know the relation that you just described in terms of how the two relate to one another. I knew a lot about the tuck bands, and I see somebody has mentioned it there, Lemuel Tull, the tuck bands at Christmas and so on. And we, of
Right.
course, we did a lot of caroling, going
Uh-huh.
around and
But
singing. you
Carolyn,
know.
Carolyn was European and North American. See, Scrubbers are
Yeah, yeah.
indigenous Barbadians. Can you imagine
Well,
if you had some Scrubbers to go in Queen's Park Christmas morning and put down a presentation, what it would be like in this day and age?
well,
Introducing this new generation in that setting to it.
yeah, you see, the thing is that, there's a clip I have coming up before we go to our next guest. I'm going to ask you, Dave, to just prep that one I sent you with the matter of colonialism. Glenn, it's amazing the impact that colonization has had on us. And just today I was saying to someone, and I was very emphatic about the fact that I am no longer on the plantation. I think for myself. I don't allow people to dictate what goes in here and control me by controlling my thinking. And over the years, our colonial masters have been brilliantly successful, I would have to say, in imposing their perspectives on our cultural norms, on our cultural issues, and so on. My next guest coming in, when you're completed, is coming in out of
But
Trinidad. And one
but
of the things I noted about Trinidad, Trinidad has done a lot to maintain its cultural renditions and so on, even of Christmas.
I am sorry. I'm not an apol. I do not blame as an individual. I've never had felt a need to blame anything on colonialism. It was what it was. It's had an impact. It is us. It's
Yeah,
up to us
yeah,
to shape that to our own. In this, okay,
absolutely,
it is.
absolutely.
I like to remind. I like to remind people that cricket is a colonial game. Barbados
Hmm.
did not, or the Caribbean did not invite cricket, but we have put our own stamp on it. The whole
Yes.
world is intermixed. There are very few distinct, pure cultures. Everybody has borrowed, taken a piece from
Hmm.
everybody. So it is up to you to put your stamp on whatever you do. Don't just take what the world gives, put something else back in the world. We give the world rum. We give the world some of the finest varieties of sugarcanes ever, all food. So we have some of the artists that we do not. We have never really had a strong self-driven purpose to put this on the world. Like for example, we had jump on Jamaica with seasonings, what they now call jerk. You remember we had Miller Brothers and those female for
Yeah,
years,
yeah,
and
yeah.
jerk has come because and we have produced about 900 different versions of seasonings. Millie's and Aunt May and Joan and Pinky and whatnot. But we have not branded it the way like how the Jamaicans have a branded jerk. I know
Hmm.
jerk it sells all over that. So those are the things that we have failed to do. And you cannot blame the person who have the ideas and the drive and the passion for himself.
Hmm.
It is what it is. It is up to you to do the same thing when you get the chance and give something back or put a stamp on the world and don't just consume it. I shall have another piece.
I'm smiling though, Glenn, because I'm thinking about. I don't know if I don't even know if Dave has a picture. I'm thinking about what the black belly sheep would say in, down in Guyana now, on the basis of what you just expressed.
No, no, yes,
I
but
can hear him. I can hear him.
eh, I
Oh
believe I believe
goodness.
that I believe the relationship should be interchange, mutual back. I give, I take, you give, I give, you take. It should never be one way. And that black belly sheep, um, I'm still puzzled. It's amazing that it left Barbados with great publicity, goes to Guyana, but no publicity. How come that the press in Barbados has not found it interesting or curious to go to Guyana and carry out a survey on the sheep themselves? You get little or no information, no pictures. It is there with cameras
But
and
we don't
videos and
have we
every,
don't
every
have investigative journalists in Barbados. That's the only
man,
conclusion I
man.
can come to.
I don't. I think it's just that they. I think largely they've been so neutered long before now, and I will talk about that on another occasion. But to me, that is a natural thing. You get people whose interest it is to talk about the success of it, how it's doing so well. Show me the evidence. Give me the empirical. Give me pictures. Give me recordings. But I don't. You don't hear about it. You don't get an interview with a Guyanese farmer, sheep rearer, a mutton killer, somebody. Nothing at all. So we're just supposed to take their version of what is going on in their own interest as the gospel. Um, So, but I have great respect for the black belly sheep, and I hope that we can hold on to it, Sam.
Well,
Okay, as a
we're
Barbadian.
gonna have him back in as one of our guests on the next. We're gonna take a break next week, Monday, and we're gonna have him
Okay.
back in as one of our guests the following
Oh,
Monday
but
after that.
let me go for my topic. I think you owe me 8 or 9 minutes, if you
I
don't
owe you
mind.
about 8 or 9 minutes, but we have a little bit
Right.
of extra time because,
Okay. All right.
yeah, we have a little bit of extra
Okay.
time. You know, I can bring
I want
Omar in.
to you I want to talk about the. I saw you had the ham there just now. Let me do it before going. I saw the ham, the cost of the ham. But I am no a mathematician. I am no economist. I'm no accountant. But neither is the Minister of Finance in Barbados. But it seems to me what you are seeing with the ham, there is a practice in business in the capitalist system and economics known as elasticity of demand. In other words, there's a demand, and it happens like, for example, a classic example with gasoline. Gasoline is essential. So therefore, its demand is not going to shrink or expand normally. It has a certain range because it's a staple. So therefore, they know that because you have to have gasoline. Minister Simmons at one time said when people were talking about the prolonged high prices we're paying for gasoline, he very brightly advised, they were quite intelligent, advised Barbadians to either carpool or drive less. Brilliant, right? But what they do, they know that because if they raise the price, the demand is not going to decline. It's not so elastic shrinks, gets longer or contracts. So it's not going to contract. It's not going to change in configuration. But so that is why they would because and ham in the Barbadian palate at Christmas is a necessity, right? So they know very well that people might quarrel about it. Most people say, "Well, I got to have piece. I still have ham, no matter how small. I must have some ham." So they do that, but at the same time, they will take that same item, produce in Barbados, and sell it in solution cheaper because they know the solution market can't bear that cost because of different economy, different strength of the dollar, etc. And then they'll use it as an introductory, get you accustomed to it, hook and then you bit by bit you increase the price as the people get accustomed to it, they like it, and it grows. So that all those tricks they play on you in the
Yeah. Oh yeah.
capitalism. All right.
Oh yeah.
Let me. The last thing about the gasoline is that, and I want to commend the way Minister Simmons and some other ministers behave over gasoline and other price rises in Barbados. They made you feel that they were helpless. They had nothing to do about it. It's all international global situation, chain of supply disruption, etc., etc.
Well, they were
Everything was
liars.
I know because, it shows you, Minister Idaria showed you quite easily what the power they still have. Remember when there was this threat of the price of eggs going up by some substantial sum? And he
Yes,
intervened. He intervened. He used his
that's right.
ministerial power to stop it. So I'm saying
So why
that we
couldn't
still,
they have intervened?
but they still have the power to control certain items in Barbados.
Sure, sure,
And if they want to,
sure.
and they can have talks with the private sector and give them use of so-called moral suasion. But to make it seem as though everything is out of their hand is pure, is ridiculous, it's disingenuous, and it's unworthy. The government is not helpless. The government has power. Look how much power they try to implant into that notorious cybercrime bill. Look at if they want to find power and use power, they're trying to find it. Why not do it on behalf and the betterment of Barbados? The other thing I want to talk about is this bullying with technology. Now, technology, technology is defined as the invention or creation of equipment or material using or machinery and equipment developed from the application of scientific knowledge. Machinery and equipment developed from the application of scientific knowledge. Applied science. So when you hear people talk about There's the age of technology. But when we built our schoolers or motors, we were using technology too. We were using scientific methods. We didn't know it. If you build a kite, you have to get the balance, the structure, or you before even you are looking at certain physics, etc. When you made the paste and the glue, you were doing chemistry. So when you hear people talk, this is the age of technology. It makes you feel as though, first of all, you remember as a religious figure and practitioner. Remember the story about the Orthodox Jews who were complaining to Jesus about that some people were not observing the Sabbath strictly, and Jesus said, from what I remember reading the Bible, that which one of you, if you had an ox that fell in the well on a Sabbath, would leave it there and not take it out? In other words, and then he said, the Sabbath was made for a man and not man for the Sabbath. But so when I draw that parallel, that analogy, because the way people are succumbing and suppressing and dominating and bubbling and bullying Barbadians for the sake of technology, makes you want to believe that technology is here to rule us. Mankind has created technology, and no piece of technology has ever created itself. Man has created technology to serve man, but now we're in an era where we are trying to make believe that if you don't succumb to the pressures of technology, whether it be digitalization, the ID cards, etc., that it will be to mankind's detriment. Mankind has always had technology, and the earliest research shows that in the year about 3 million BC, mankind started. And for those who say you don't know that, there are actual scientific methods that allow people to test materials and estimate the time at which they came into being. Mankind started to use rocks as tools, right? Rocks as tools. That was a form of technology. And they said that fire, in the invention of fire, was also a form of technology. Metal, iron, steel, copper, bronze, glass, all
Oil.
those are technological inventions. All right, the telephone, electricity, the various things that have come. So this idea that if you don't succumb to the use of various technological in this massive exposure to the world, bullying imposed on the world. Do you know that Steve Jobs said that his children never he only allowed his children to use electronic devices, cell phones, and tablets when they were 16 for half an hour each day?
That's right. That's right. He
All right.
never even
So they're
let them
trying to
use
make
the
it
calculator.
precisely. I know, and I'm talking about it like how I see where the government is again trying to bully the populace, and unfortunately they're picking on the senior citizens to make it believe that
Yes,
this
I saw that.
so-called trial, this pass, for
Yes.
which a new pass is being created, and they try. Why? First of all, why? I would think that the pensioners are not the largest cohorts of people who use the transport by the buses. Why would you? I thought you would start with a bigger segment of the population to see how that would go. Why do you start with them unless it's to bully them, to force them to adapt to the situation, which some of them might not be reluctant to do, might be reluctant or not prepared to do. And I don't think they should be made to do it. I used to travel, when I lived in Toronto, I used to travel on Toronto Transit Commission, TTC. They had fare boxes where you could pay the exact fare. You could buy tokens. You could buy a ticket, or you could get a transfer ticket. All those were in the same box. I checked, and they said that currently they still have the same tokens, the fare boxes, the transfer tickets. You can put the exact cash, and you can also swipe your card, your debit card or credit card. So they've added to that. But here in Barbados, they're going to bring a whole new set of technology, and it makes you, it always follow the money. Who is benefiting from supplying this new technology? Who are the beneficiaries? More political patronage. Is it a case of more family, friends, and fornicators getting benefits? That
Mhm.
right? So you're going to start. You're trying to bully the people in it. But why do not give people options? Why not give people options? Why do you have to impose on it? Because and they talk about efficiency. What is efficiency? The transport board. This will not
But
stop the transport board
from
from
being
struggling
efficient. That's
financially,
right. That's right. That's right.
right?
Yeah.
And I talk about efficiency. I'm also talking about this drive by commercial banks in Barbados so stop sending you printed statements of your checking account, your your um your checking account, your savings account, your credit card account even, right? It's so idiotic. I want bank stop sending me them and then send me a periodic what they call a period two periodic statements. And guess what? What they're saying they change stop this paper trail to save money to be more efficient to go green to help help
Yeah. The
the
excuse is
economy.
always
Uh,
climate change too.
climate change.
Climate
Okay, yeah.
change. Everything is
But
climate
listen,
change. You know.
after saying they were not after refused to send me any one, they sent me one for the 3rd of October and one for the 3rd of November. Tell me guess which year?
Don't tell me
2020,
2023.
2023. So it would have been a waste of
Uh,
money to send it to me current. By year when it's meaningless, how do they send
yeah.
it to me, right? And,
Well, I
and,
tell
and,
you.
and to me, I resist it as much as possible. Have you ever tried one of the objections I have to the introduction and the way it's being done is where you're not almost given any options. They
Right.
said
Right.
you should contact them by then if you want an office or a banking office, insurance office, most office, call by you call. No, people very seldom all answer the phone. Even when the
But
operator put you through, you leave a voicemail. You seldom ever get a call
and they
back.
seldom ever call you back. Yeah.
You send an email. You seldom ever call you back. You have to chase them now. So where is the efficiency? How has it made life more convenient for people by imposing these things
Yeah.
on you? And I checked with the central bank, and I was told by one of the officers of the central bank that they merely give guidelines to the bank, right? They give guidelines. They don't dictate policy. But they thought policy should come out of guidelines. In other
Mhm.
words, you can't just
Well,
leave it wide open. Or these are guidelines and leave it for people to use their advice to their own advantage to the disadvantage of the public.
well,
That is what is
Glenn.
happening.
Glenn, this, to be honest with you, and I'm just watching the time. This leads us into our next segment, actually, because you're dealing with something that our next guest is going to be engaging on, and that is the whole aspect of globalization, and the impact it's having on Barbados and other countries within the context of the Caribbean. Let me just bring in Umar Abdullah from Trinidad.
Oh yeah,
While I make my comments, Abdul,
sure.
welcome to the show tonight. Pleasure to have you joining us again, as being a part of the CARICOM community. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me, and a pleasant good night to you and your panel and
Good night,
all your viewers.
good night, good night. Welcome again. I look forward to
Yes,
your presentation.
but
Uh,
as I was listening to Glenn there, Umar, the thought crossed my mind in terms of what we discussed, and communicated. Getting a little noise from your system there, or unless it's coming out of mine, it's like a shriek. Let me just see if it's me. I just mute myself. No, not me. Okay, let me just mute Glenn for a minute. See if I get him. No, not there. It might be on your end, Umar. We're getting some noise there. But the whole aspect of what's happening in our world, that is being imposed upon our Caribbean territories. You talked about the bullying line. Where some months ago they tried to impose the digital Trident ID card on
Right,
all Barbadians and force them to pin it. And of course, there was so much pushback with that. The dates got pushed back, and then they said no, they wouldn't engage it. But now what we see is almost like a person under duress. In other words, you can't travel on the bus now as a pensioner unless you have the Trident ID card, and you have to pin it in order to use it on the transport system. And Umar, we talked about the whole aspect. You sent me a very interesting um, content of information to do with globalization. And before you share, I want to ask Dave to play a clip. I can't remember if I sent it to you. There was a gentleman speaking concerning colonization, and he was speaking with regards to the colonizers, the European colonizers of the Middle East. And then he showed how the Middle East broke away from it. And maybe it would be better just to let's listen to him. It's not a very long extract. I don't think it's just a minute or a little over a minute. But just to lead into your session, just to hear what he shared concerning this whole aspect of economic colonization. Go ahead, Dave.
You're seeing a coming together in the Middle East of a number of things. The first and most important, in my opinion, is the end of colonialism. That's bigger than the end of the United States because it's the end of the British and the French and the German. They all had empires, many of them with outposts in the Middle East, and then all of them wiped out in the Second World War heavily and replaced by the United States. So that area of the world is part of a revolution that really starts in the first half of the 20th century and then really takes off in the second half and continuing. And that is a rejection of being a colonial subordinate. They took the first big step, political independence. Now, in the 21st century, they're dealing with the economic independence, which they do not have. And they're bitter. Bitter because many of them didn't understand. You can be as dependent economically after independence as you were before. Political independence, parliamentary government is a bit of a mirage. They weren't leftist enough. If they had been more leftist, they would have understood that the corporations can buy the political system if they need to and want to, and that can render the government a shell, a front, puppets, sort of like we have here. You're seeing a coming together in the Middle East of a number of things. The first and most important, in my opinion, is the end of colonialism.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you. Great. I think he makes a couple of very valid points there, Omar, in terms of we become politically independent, but and I've said this several times, Glenn. You'll know on the show here, I've actually expressed the fact that the whole agenda of, in my view, of globalization is economic colonization and enslaving of the territories that they were once colonized through the political end, but now they're broken away from that. Yeah, no problem. They have their own governance and so on, but now we are actually economically enslaved, and we are beholden, so as it were, to the economic colonizers. Omar, over to you there.
Yeah. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yeah. And that little noise is it pops up as soon as you start. It pops up. But we can hear you
So
clearly. But
you're
there's just
getting
that
that
noise
noise now?
coming through.
Are you getting that noise now?
Sorry.
Are you getting that noise? Are you getting that noise now?
Yeah.
No.
I
I don't
think
No,
know.
it's
I'm
not
when
trying
sure.
to.
I think when he makes some. I think when he makes some movement, it seems to affect.
You all hear me clearly?
Yeah, we just heard you very clearly. Yeah, but then that
Right.
noise comes right in after you and kind of overpowers you and breaks you up.
I don't know what's causing that, and I can't seem to understand what is happening. Um,
I'm not going
anyways,
to tell you what to tell me. I know what they would tell me.
right. But it's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting that you all would have mentioned colonization earlier, and one may want to think that that era of colonization, and we have been freed from the clutches of our colonial masters. But I want to warn the Caribbean tonight that there is a new wave of colonization taking place. And that new wave of colonization is going to grip us even worse than when we were enslaved. And I've been looking and paying attention to what has been happening globally. And my friend a little while ago alluded to, how the Middle East was able to free themselves from colonization and so on. I don't think it is totally true to say that. I still believe that the Middle East is still grappling with a lot of issues as regards to freeing themselves from the clutches of the colonial masters as we know it. And which is why I've chosen to speak about this topic tonight. The hidden dangers of globalization. And we often hear it, the one world government, and also we've been hearing about the one world religion. Now, a lot of people are not aware of these terminologies. Some of you may hear it for the very first time. Some of you probably would have heard it in conversations, through different programmings and such, social media, etc., not pay much mind to it, because you go about your life every single day. You get up, you do what you do, you go to work, you come back home, you watch television. You feel you have this sort of freedom that guarantees you some sort of happiness. But I tell you something, that freedom that you think you have is not freedom. That happiness that you believe that you have is not true happiness. It is what is being told to you and what is being sold to you, and you accept it as our previous, our ancestors who were slaves. Remember when they were in the plantations, they would say, or the house slaves, they would repeat after the master. When the master says, "I'm sick," they would say, "We are sick." And we are seeing a whole repeat of this, but in a different manifestation, in a different form, in a different format. Now, as I said, we are witnessing a global push towards centralization of power under the guise of cooperation, and we hear that a lot, progress and peace. What exactly do we understand by cooperation, progress, and peace? Something that sounds good. While these ideas may sound appealing, they carry serious risk for humanity, family structures, and listen to me carefully, family structures. How many of us are grappling with the structure within our homes or families, trying to get it together, trying to understand what's happening with our youth, our children, and society as a whole? Today, I want to highlight and not just highlight, but bring to your attention the dangers of globalization. And a lot of us feel that it is okay that we are they sell this idea a lot. This world that we live in is one global village, right? They sell it to you as as though we're all one big happy family. Well, I'm going to scare you tonight. The threat of this one world government and why the idea of a unified world religion undermines the very foundation of freedom and diversity. Remember what I said earlier? They tell you you're free, but you're not actually free. You're not free. And that's why we have mounting of problems that we have in our different islands as regards to legislation, policies by government leaders, and so on and so forth. Now, some of the key issues that we have to pay attention to. Centralization of power. And we hear this word a lot being used in recent times, centralization, which is really, in my view, a loss of sovereignty and freedom. A one world government will erode national sovereignty. And we are seeing that happening in our Caribbean islands already, leaving countries and communities powerless to govern themselves. Decisions about economics, cultures, and traditions would be made by a centralized authority, far removed from the realities of ordinary people. When power is concentrated in the hands of a few, history has shown us abuse of this power follows. And we have real life examples. United Nations, World Economic Forum, and the impact of these policymakers and how they have this world in a grip that we can't seem to be able to free ourselves from. The role of technology in global control, and we heard the gentleman, my friend, talk about it a little earlier, technology. The introduction of central bank digital currencies and the surveillance systems creates tools for unprecedented controls over individuals. And we see this happening daily in our lives. These systems can monitor, regulate, and restrict people's financial freedom. We've seen that happening already. The bus system in Barbados. Imagine a future where dissent is punished through financial control. So no longer we can come and talk about the issues in this program, right? They're going to punish us financially.
But you know, Umar, that happened during the pandemic in Canada. You remember that when the
Yes,
protesting
yes,
truckers,
yes,
their
yeah.
accounts were locked out and they couldn't get food for their children and all of that. Yeah, that was a classic example.
So what I'm talking about here, and a lot of you will probably tell yourself, well, you know, I'm reading too much into this. I have the evidence, and I'm going to bring it to you, not tonight, because my friend would have indicated to me today we'll have to separate this program to two separate parts, part one and part two. I understand that next Monday we will not have the show, but the following Monday, I'm hoping to come back and talk about the key initiatives and treaties and institutions that is pushing this global governance and this unified framework. All right. And people need to understand that these things exist. So imagine where you'll be punished for speaking out against their draconian policies. So this is no longer science fiction. It's no long ago you look at these science fiction movies and read these science fiction novels and so on, and you know, you read about things that's out of this world, that a time is going to come when robots is going to be, you know, serving us coffee and attending to us in the hotels when we go to book into the hotels and so on and so forth. We're already seeing that happening already. Just a couple of days ago, I saw a man walking a dog, but it's not a dog, it's a robot, right? Made into a dog, right? And then, you know, it's just amazing where we have arrived. And then
He was
you know,
you mean he was taking a robotic dog for a walk?
yes, the dog was following him, and then the robot dog was following him, and so on. No, it's real. You understand? So so it's no longer science fiction. It's real. It's before us. Policies disguised as security often undermine privacy and freedom. And we see this happening daily. Look at what's happening to our cyber bills throughout the Caribbean region. All right, we saw it, fell apart in Trinidad and Tobago. Soon it's going to fall apart in Barbados. It's not going to get the light of day in Barbados. And I hope the people in Barbados stand up and, reject this cyber bill policy that Barbados is attempting to bring. The threat of religious and cultural diversity. We see that happening on a daily basis. We have seen and witnessed in our time the removal of religious education from the school. Right? All right. There's no longer that subject in our schools. Why do you think that is? That I and you or my children, our children will go to school and they will be, they will distance these children from their religion and make the schooling environment open play field for any and everything to present itself in the school. Expose all the children to this global agenda of inclusivity, acceptance of this, that, and the other, etc., etc. Far apart, far away from religion, far away from the religion they grew up with. So no longer would they be familiar with their religion and religion doctrines and so on. And they will soon be participating in programs and ideas and studies and so on that is going to take them away from the root of their religion, their values, their morals, and all these things, and help them to accept or force them to accept more or less these new concepts and these new ideas, these new ideologies. Very, very frightening. It's happening before our very eyes. Question your boy and girl when they come home from school. What happened in school today? What did the teachers speak about? What was the topic in class today? What were some of the questions they asked you in your examination? And you'll see for yourself. What I'm telling you is the truth. So all these the push for this one world religion threatens deeply beliefs, cultural traditions, and moral values we spoke about a little while ago. Religious and cultural diversity in societies. And we have grown up with that. I heard you all speak about, the golden days when, how you all practice or celebrated your Christmas and so on. You spoke a bit about Trinidad Christmas, how we have traditionally practiced or celebrated Christmas in Trinidad and Tobago. Forcing uniformity in faith will lead to spiritual emptiness and moral relativism. Efforts to promote unity must not erase the distinct identities that makes us human. We must not allow that to erase. That's those elements that make us human beings. How many of us sit sometimes and we wonder, where have our humanity gone? Crime has gone out of control. There's no humanity in the way we treat each other anymore. When was the last time you saw a child walk the street and say, hello, good afternoon, Mr. Simon, how are you? When was the last time we saw that type of engagement? We wish it could come back. And there's some warning signs, right? And those are some of the things I'm going to touch on in our next program. In the interfaith initiatives, you understand, that seek conformity rather than respect for differences. So presently we are being asked to conform, to accept, to comply, rather than to have respect for our differences. We have the impact on families and communities. Globalized governance and uniform policies often undermine family structures, parental rights, and local decision making. And we have seen that happening. We've seen that happening before our very eyes. I am sure many of you parents out there could relate to what it is I'm saying here now. Cultural and moral values that sustains communities are replaced with centralized impersonal systems. Healthy societies begin with strong families. Who can point me in the direction of strong families today? Look in our neighborhoods. Look in our villages. Where are the strong family structures? Right? And strong families require the freedom to uphold their values without interference. You go to a family, a friend's home, and there are particular values in this friend's home that is alien to you because you come from a different home, a different background, different, faith system, a different ideology, a different, value system, and you recognize that your friend's home has a set of value system that is alien to you, and you begin to wonder how your friend, live in this environment, but your friend is comfortable because that's his family structure. That's how his family, the home of his family is structured. There are certain morals, there are values, there are principles, the laws. With regards to this globalization, we have to recognize, or already recognizing, increasing control by global institutions over national policies. Are you all reading me?
Yeah, sure.
Are you all
Yeah,
understanding what I'm saying?
I have a few comments I'd like to make when you're finished.
Yeah. Right. So the push for centralized currencies, surveillance tools, restrictions on freedom of speech under the guise of combating misinformation, policies, all these things. Is it sound familiar? The undermining of local governance to promote uniformity in education, religion, and social practices, and all these things. Are these things ringing a bell or taking you back to some of our recent fights with our institutions and our governments and so on? So one of the things that we must do as a people, right? We have to, first of all, we have to recognize these things, and we have to recognize it as being a threat to our humanity. If we do not recognize it being a threat to our humanity, we will not be able to properly respond to it and address it in the appropriate sense. All right? You go to an AA Alcohol Anonymous meeting, the first thing they ask you to accept the fact that you are an alcoholic. So if you do not recognize that what we are faced with today is a threat to our humanity, a threat to our families, family structure, our societies, etc., as we know it to be, then we would not be able to help ourselves. It will not make any sense you're making this call on this platform here tonight. So we must stay informed, educate yourself, educate ourselves about global government or global governance agencies, right? And some of these things, I'm going to talk about it in our next program. right? So we could expound on what it is we are talking about here now. Protect our local autonomy. So we have to protect that within our villages, our councils, our village councils, our communities, community centers, and so on. Local government, support local decision making over global mandates, defend religious and cultural freedom, uphold your beliefs, and respect others' right to theirs. Respect others' right to their beliefs. And this is how we can move forward as a people.
You know, Omar, listen to you there just before I bring you in the line. Um, I'm not going to play it now, Omar, but I had a clip with Charles Schwab sitting down having a conversation with someone else. I can't remember the name of the person now, but one of the things the point he was making was how they've been able to infiltrate cabinet in government. This is the World Economic Forum. How they've been able to infiltrate the cabinets of governments, and he referenced by example Canada. That was the first reference he made in terms of Canada. And what we are hearing, because I've often expressed here on the show and in other public environments, that a lot of what is happening in Barbados, and I dare say similarly in Trinidad and maybe very similarly in Guyana, are not homegrown. They're not culturally established from within our own operational system. As you know, what a culture is where a country is concerned, the belief systems and the practices and so on of a people. We see a lot of things originating from the outside and being imposed upon our countries here, and it's really a part, as you rightfully indicated, of the globalization, the move toward a one world order, one world government, one world religion. You lose your sovereignty. I think it was very recently the UN passed a resolution by consensus to do with the next global emergency, they call it. Of course, we know they meant pandemic, which is already planned and I dare say already being implemented. We just have not seen it or it has not been made public yet. But they have indicated that in the event of that next engagement, governments, I think 190 something countries, America has not signed it. They have embraced it, these countries, including countries in the Caribbean, I think we have as well, that in the next global emergency, the UN becomes the sovereign power and takes over the sovereignty of our country and imposes the regulations and conditions that will exist in our countries during the next global emergency. So we've already begun to see this being played out, within the context of how things are happening in the international arena. Glenn, you wanted to make a comment, and
Yes.
right after you do that, I want to bring Kimar in because he also wants to talk about some of the IMF implementations that are affecting our region, and I dare say Guyana, Trinidad, all of our countries in the Caribbean are going to be impacted by it. So, your
Excellent.
comment, Glenn.
Yeah. Just give me a minute or so. I just where Abdullah's comments are concerned, I what I would put it in this. There's an old phrase called "same old cakey pants." You remember that?
That's a Bajan
Same old cakey pants. All right.
Umar, you're learning some Bajan sayings. You're learning some Bajan sayings.
I say that because you're talking about globalization.
Yeah.
But before it was globalization, there was mercantilism, where Britain and the others tried to import a system whereby only her colonies could trade with her and she trade with certain colonies. They're controlling the trade, controlling the activity, controlling the money. So we don't call it globalization, but the same thing. It's the same thing, imperialism all over again in another form. Neo-colonialism, and it's probably re-enslavement of the world, because they're not doing it in the name of a country, Britain or France or Portugal or whatever, Spain. They're doing it through certain institutions. The IMF, the World Bank, the IADB carry out their policies, and we know, especially at Barbados, we become highly indebted to them. You have to carry out the instructions. You want their money. So it's a new form of colonization. So we are once again recolonized, and you're being subtly and in certain ways being re-enslaved. So it's the same old thing coming in new clothes. And what is so ironic, remember before we had globalization, there's a big deal was made about WTO, the World Trade Organization,
Yes. Yes.
right? The American led that drive. I think an American hedged the WTO, but the Americans do not accept any ruling against them by the WTO. It's supposed to be a rule-based institution, the world to govern world trade. But the Americans do not accept anything that doesn't suit their interests. Ignore it. I mean, they've done it with Antigua for years, etc. And then it's just another form of dominance, colonization, imperialism, etc. And it's being, like I said, being manufactured through the World Bank, IADB, IMF. Name me one IMF bound country. Probably the best, like I said before, example is Jamaica. Jamaica. There was a time when the Jamaican dollar was worth more than the US dollar in the 60s. No, it takes, last time we saw 157
I
Jamaican
think it
dollars.
went. I think it went to 170.
Oh, there you are.
It
And
went to
they have been
170.
and they have
Mm.
been having repeat, like the Prime Minister said. The Prime Minister said recently, she admitted that she found herself in a vortex with the IMF where we are borrowing loans to repay loans. We are making loans to repay loans. Jamaicans do that since the 70s and 80s. I remember Prime Minister Tom was telling me that they'll never recover this 40 some more years later. So when I hear about, for example, I saw where government had an issue of debentures for $250 million. And the people, the first 10 years, we know no, will be a grace period. In other words, you don't get any interest for the first 10 years. And the next 10 years, you get 7.7. So you're just spinning top and
Yeah.
bottom, fool ourselves
Yeah.
that we are in a vortex and we are on a treadmill, running hard and fast, etc., sweating a lot, but not making any progress. So,
Is that like the old saying that we used to have one step forward and two steps back?
or like me saying
You
it
know.
song, I hold your belly, no, you're not trembling, you're not holding your belly into me, you hold your belly and balling now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You know.
But I look
So
forward to Umbella's further contribution.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we can give some meat
And
to some of those things we talked about.
absolutely, the synergy that's going to be occurring as well, Umar, between the religious and the political, in order to further and advance the entire global agenda. Because, as you know, religion forms a significantly strong element within the context of many countries and many cultures. And so there's a need to bring that under control as well, and we're going to be seeing a lot of that in terms of how we move forward in the years to come. I want to take this opportunity to welcome Kimar onto our session tonight. He's into the closing segment of our session tonight, and he's going to be. And I don't know if you're hearing me, Kimar. If you're picking me up, just to
Right.
ensure that
Good night,
we're
good night.
good
Good
night.
night, good
Good.
night,
We
good
are
night,
hearing
Kiva.
you, and welcome to the show tonight, Kimar. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to be sharing. It sounds really, really interesting. So welcome to the show tonight.
Hi, good night, Pastor Ferguson. Good night to Mr. Marie.
Good night,
Good to
sir.
see you. Yes, yes,
Good
how
to
we
see you.
doing, sir? Good night to uh, Umar. I have it right this time. Good night to you. Good night to you, brother. Um, Good to hear you on the show as always. Good night to all of the members of the Royal Opposition. Very good, glad to be here as usual. So I could go on, Pastor Ferguson.
Oh yes, you can go right ahead. We welcome you. We welcome you. Absolutely. And season's greetings and Merry Christmas to all of us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks. Same to you. Same to everybody on the live stream, everybody in the comments. Marcia, Dave, Caswell, Rose, Maxine, and remember everybody, all the loyal soldiers, and happy holidays to everybody. Um,
And we're enjoying the Christmas caroling by the crickets in your background.
yeah, yeah, they usually come out at night.
I'm not sure if they're singing Silent Night or Holy Night or if they're doing Heart the Herald Angels Sing, boy, but we can hear 'em. I mean, you have any local songs, Glenn? Because I only really know those ones.
I would like the crickets to sing in Spooge or Tapper or
Okay,
something, a song called
okay.
that'd be nice.
Oh
So
goodness, yeah, yeah. But go right ahead, Kimar, because you sent me some information to do with the IMF and their aspect of violent crime killing regional economies, and this sounds really, really interesting.
Right. Yeah, the IMF argued recently that violent crime is killing regional economies. Um, the act, the Bergen Act, and the high rate that is associated with Caribbean economies is turning away investment prior to the IMF. It's undermining the economic structure and the society, and therefore it could possibly contribute to reductions in overall GDP. Right? Uh, so if you look at Caribbean countries, we could look at Barbados. And by the way, I don't know if y'all followed it, but Barbados has now reached its highest murder rate ever in its history this year. So that is one statistic that we cannot be proud about for 2024. Um, the second record was around 2019, 2020 for the highest murder rate. So we had two record-breaking sprees of violent crimes in Barbados in terms of numbers, and that's not, a proud statistic to have for a country that sells tourism. Like, that's not a proud statistic for a country that has young people growing up living in it, elderly people growing up living in it, law-abiding citizens living in it, having to experience, these pace and ways of, in particularly violent crime, murder, acts of murder. So we could attest right now in Barbados that the discovery of the bones at Henley and St. John, um, such brazen murders, these things shake up societies. So like, these things shake up societies. So when they disturb society, according to the NF, it could slow down the overall production and growth of a country because people become fearful. Uh, People tend to withhold spend, they tend to withhold money, they tend to stay closer to home. Tourists who will book vacation will reconsider booking vacations because the tourists do follow the news media. And all, I should say that right now in Canada, Barbados Today and Pacific News Media are banned. So you can't pick up local Belgian news in Canada right now for in some places in Canada. Right? And that is part of the filtering, I should call it shielding the tourism product by stopping the bad news, i.e., having the highest murder rate ever in the history of Barbados plastered all over the world because that's clearly not good for business. On either side, domestic side or international. No, when we speak of violent crime, we could come down now to the physical aspect of it, which is a crime done with a firearm, crime done with a sword, a knife, um, some type of weapon. Um, we look at access to these weapons as a solution to tackling violent crime. Right? So we know there's a problem with the flow of firearms to the region. Specific countries have been targeted as the hotspots or the origin spots for these weapons. For some reason, the weapons still find their way into tribal countries predominantly. Now, I don't know of manufacturing firearm plants, particularly anywhere in the Caribbean. I don't know. I know I don't know. I would say I don't know. I know there's none in Barbados, and there shouldn't be none in St. Vincent, St. Lucia, those places, etc. But we do find access to firearms very easy. So clearly they coming from somewhere and they get in here, whatever. The people I always say criminals are using these firearms to create or commit these violent acts, um, which then you have to use state resources to combat uh, acts of violent crime after the act is committed. In that you have to deploy police, ambulance, the court system, the prison system. So then there's a strain on the public purse, also with a strain on the psyche of the society. Right? So when you have that tension in societies where the citizens day to day can open their houses and feel comfortable laying at home, enjoying the breeze, um, where the kids can come out and play, um, where you can come into the city, the capital city, or you can go into a shopping mall like Sheraton without somebody pulling out a gun in a public mall and just, shooting up the place. So when you look at the international world, we often hear of mass shooting in this city, mass shooting in school, um, hear of when you step on the Islamic side, you might hear of like uh, about the bombings, right? And more aggressively weaponized attacks. You hear of these things, and it creates a level of fear, right? And this fear destabilizes and deters a person even without first visiting that place. It would mentally deter you from wanting to go there. So a country that is peaceful in nature, but because of mainstream media propaganda, you would believe that this country is a terrorist country, and vice versa. A country may be a very, may have a very wicked leader at the time, and it may be enacting genocide and other terroristic moves to destabilize and destroy other nations, but because of mainstream propaganda and media, we believe that this country is a saint, and the leader is a saint, right? So this type of news media, and you're an international observer, and you're looking at this, you would hesitate before you want to come to the Caribbean because you know it is putting the thought into your mind that there's a spirit of violent crime happening all across many Caribbean countries. But then you do check the statistics. High murder rates in Jamaica, in all honesty, high murder rates in Antigua, high murder rates in St. Lucia, high murder rates in Barbados, high murder rates in Trinidad, high murder rates in St. Kitts. So the problem does exist. Like, but how do you cure the problem? No, at the level of CARICOM, the Caribbean Prime Ministers are discussing and foreign ministers are discussing labeling crime as a public health issue. Right? And this notion was taken down from the World Health Organization in trying to tackle crime as a public health issue. Now, I myself could not make a link between crime and public health. So I observed in St. Lucia and Jamaica when they trying to discuss what could really be the link between crime and public health. And at the international level, what essentially they're trying to say about this crime within Caribbean that needs a public health solution to crime. Right? Now, when you check the last pandemic, they gave us a public health solution to COVID. The public health solution to COVID was mandatory lockdown. Right? So, under public health emergency, we saw the powers that the police were able to use on citizens during a public health emergency. We saw the powers that the army got during the public health emergency. We saw the powers that a prime minister ascertained, almost dictatorship type powers during a public health emergency. Right? So how now do you rationale crime now to have those same type of solutions, public health solutions? Are you suggesting that there will be mandatory lockdowns, or you're suggesting lockdowns and curfews? And we see curfews in Jamaica, where certain areas are cordoned off, and then because of the high crime rates and the high acts of violence. How do you run a tourism-based economy when you have curfews on the people and restrictions in movements? Right? So these type of solutions essentially will become widespread, right? More state of emergencies when it comes to crime-ridden areas, cordons, house searches, door to door, coming the army and police searching, trying to identify criminals. Now, with the expansion of borders, we have more regional and international criminals who come in and use Caribbean countries as hideaways or safe havens. So we're seeing institutions now like the FBI taking open positions on corruption and crime in the Caribbean. Right? So if you have international agencies like the FBI observing crime in the Caribbean, tackling the basis of tackling corruption, and this is corruption in that you have public officials who facilitate the trade of illegal firearms and the flow of illegal firearms into countries. And we have many examples across the Caribbean where public officials were charged for facilitating such activities. So when you take a moment from this, you look at other regions and you look at the news that is reported on these regions. Obviously, these regions again have high crime rates, high crime levels. But when you look at the reporting, is often not done in a way that disparages the islands, or not the islands, but the country's reputation, to label it as, unstable and violent, extreme acts of murder occurring, willy nilly. You have what we call the bulletins, those bulletins, those warnings, uh, that these countries, like America and these other larger geopolitical countries, travel advisories, tell you not to come to specific Caribbean countries because of the increased rate of not being involved in a violent act. Even when tourists come to the Caribbean, there are advisories on the plane, and people telling you what are the hot spots on the island. So they will say, well, try to travel on the main roads and try not to divert into this particular area because this particular area is known for having high criminal activity. And tourists are told these things on a daily when they come to Barbados and other Caribbean countries. So having that reputation of being, easily linked to crime, uh, and robberies of tourists and other people, it is very easy for the IMF and the international institutions to ascertain that acts of violence and crime is indeed contributing to the overall reductions in GDP and contributing to overall destabilization of the society. And it's very easy now for them to jump in and say, well, here's the public health solution to it, lockdowns and cordons and restriction of movements, etc., etc.
You know what is
So,
what I find
Okay.
ironic, Kimar, is when I I'm actually looking at the article here on my screen entitled "The IMF Violent Crime Killing Regional Economies," and I deem it almost hypocritical for the IMF to even engage a moral position on this matter when the IMF themselves are contributory and complicit in this entire affair. When you take a look at the austerity measures that are imposed upon a country by the International Monetary Fund in order to bring down, for example, government's expenditure, which fundamentally, and you can correct me, sir, you're the financial guy, you're the economist, I am not, but I understand business, I think a little bit, Glenn and Umar, that the majority of expenditures in any business goes out in salaries. And if government is to cut expenditure, it is only obvious that it is going to cut employment. And as a result of that, unemployment is going to increase. And it is from where I sit, when unemployment increases, when people are not getting paid a respectable enough wage to be able to purchase their commodities and so forth. Does that not in itself, Kimar, Umar, Aglain,
Yeah.
contribute to the increasing criminal activity within a community? Isn't it the same IMF and their policies that contribute to that?
Uh, if I may
yeah,
jump in here.
well, before, well, I would just like, so, before we go, listen to me, respond quick, and then you guys could have, right.
Mhm.
Father Fernand, there's a study that proves that violent crime is committed by persons of a more lower socio-economic bracket. So when you have austerity programs in place which increase the amount of persons on welfare and further social assistance, uh, more or less, uh, then that increases crime because you have persons with lower economic opportunity existing within the unemployed or what we call an idle state, and therefore the propensity to crime would increase. So yes, you are correct, and I want to say that in Barbados in particular, um, the destabilization of the education system, um, COVID, learning loss, uh, that is a prime example, Pastor Ferdinand, as to how you're going to see the effect of that in years to come.
Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah. Okay, man, first of all, thank you very much for making that observation about this, about crime being a public health issue. I never bought it. I tried to figure it out myself, what were the connects, what were the causations, and I thank you very much for bringing it to me, to public attention. I thought I was the only one who might have thought so. Because I think it's an admission of failure on the part of governments that their policies of tackling crime have failed. And they're now shifting from the political and the administrative and the social now to public health. I think an embarrassing bout of ignorance. And I want to thank you very much for fortifying my thinking that I was not alone in that. The other thing is, though, I also want to, Dr. Ferdinand raised that when I heard you talking, came out with the IMF at water. Because I'm no lover, I don't have any sweetheart deals, I don't have any naive thoughts about the IMF. I think they're international gangsters. Um, but I was going to ask, is there any study, has there been any empirical study done, um, Kima, that shows causation and linkages between IMF policy in countries and the effects it has on the economy, society, etc.? Has anybody ever done that kind of study that shows conclusively, empirically, and not just anecdotally, that can? I think that is one of the key questions you have to ask yourself. And if that's so, that can explain a lot as to happen in Barbados, Jamaica, and those people who have been under the draconian hands of the IMF for so long.
Well, the thing about it is that when I read the article in the newspaper, Glein, I just want to read a couple of extracts from it. One of the extracts speaks of a 30%. Let me just get it here. This is crime. It discourages investment, reduces tourism, drives emigration, further weakening economic resilience and constraining the region's future growth. The IMF research reveals that crime hampers innovation, reduces firm productivity, compounding economic stagnation over time, leveraging geolocalized data on night lights. The study finds that having homicide rates in violent municipalities would increase their economic output by up to 30%. And then the following paragraph indicates that where you have a 6% increase, let me get this right. Conversely, macroeconomic instability often fuels spikes in violence. A recession in LAC is associated with a 6% increase in homicides the following year, while inflation spikes above 10%, are linked to a 10% rise in homicides the year after. So I believe there are studies that are done, Glenn. It would appear to me, however, the IMF don't pay any attention to the studies that they have.
But I was very interested in some of the language they were using. They were using in the municipalities. We don't have municipalities. I think expect for Trinidad with local government. We don't have municipalities generally in the Caribbean. I think they're using American studies and data and
Yes,
experiences
they're
and then
not, no, but they
extrapolate the
never do.
Caribbean.
Yeah, they
Right.
never
So I'm
do.
saying,
I mean,
I was inquiring about Caribbean-based
mhm.
source studies that give us a true indication of what's happening among ourselves. Because
I don't know.
uh,
No, I was
because
just about to ask Kemar if he has heard of any.
If I heard,
Of any studies that are done where this matter is concerned, utilizing Caribbean
Caribbean.
CARICOM statistics.
But
Just
I was
because
trying to hear the Murray earlier, but it was patchy, so I didn't hear his.
well,
Uh,
what he was saying is that fundamentally, when you read the article, it speaks of municipalities and LA. I think that's would be LAC would be Los Angeles County, isn't that right? Uh,
That's what I thought. That's what I
yeah.
thought too.
So what he was saying, Kimar, is that the languaging that we're reading in the article, treating to the matter to do with violent crime killer region economies, does not seem to point to any regional statistical evidence
It does not
to
take in the
justify
Caribbean
that. Yeah,
experience.
yeah, to
He's
justify that.
patchwork. He's picking up the U.S. experience and dumping on the Caribbean to give you a reading. I think that's professionally wrong and disgusting. If you don't have the
well,
data, say so.
the Caribbean government would not usually keep such statistics and publish such statistics because it would essentially make them look bad like they weak on crime.
No,
Right? Uh,
but
so
go,
if
go
you
ahead.
look at the statistics that sorry, I would say if you look at the statistics that the commissioner of police would come and give, they usually come and give statistics that are pro whatever the strategy of the government is, and not necessarily pro what
That's,
the right thing to do, or what the society wants, or what's the most effective thing to do.
Or the truth.
Dr. Ferdinand, how about the people at the University of West Indies? We have Dr. Was Dr. Who is a sociologist who writes a lot about crime, Dr. Devonish, etc. Have they done anything on the Barbados or the Caribbean experience and crime
I
to
would.
see the impact? That is what those are the kind of
Mhm.
sources I would like to hear of, or any well founded source. Until then, I have a great deal of skepticism about it.
Omar, have you heard of any studies done where this matter is concerned, even within the Caribbean? Because I know that in Trinidad, at the UWI, they do a number of different studies and so forth. Well, here too in Barbados. Have you ever heard of any that our UE locations would have done? You're muted. Let me. You're muted. Yeah. Go.
Yes, sorry about
Go
that.
ahead.
Yes, not to my knowledge, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are, and it's been suppressed, it's been hidden, and so on. There's certain narratives that needs to be sold to the people, and people has to buy that narrative and believe in it. If there are any studies, and I think I'll do some research myself and look into some of those instances where there may perhaps have been, people with no study done or observation made by an institution or individuals, and we can probably discuss it in the next program, because that will come in very nicely in the next program when I have to discuss all these institutions and treaties and so on that is opening, the gateway and leading us to this global governance and global one religion. So it's
For you, if I may have a
important
couple of words. No, sorry.
that we can.
Uh,
Yeah. Go ahead, Glenn. Go ahead, Glenn.
um, um, I want to say that the people at University of West Indies should therefore be urged to do that and be professionally relevant, right? Because and then if it is the policy of the government to try to camouflage, sanitize figures, and wash them, right? They're only fooling themselves because people will know differently in their lived daily experience. They know what's happening. They would judge the government harshly for their propaganda and this misleading attempt to confuse them and misguide them. The other thing
Well,
is where go ahead.
no, I was just about to say that the in the same article, Glenn, it says reflecting on the dire statistics. Listen carefully to this, huh? Reflecting on the dire statistics, a recently released IMF blog revealed that despite representing just 8% of the world's population, the Caribbean and Latin America accounted for nearly one third of all global homicides. Where, I mean, how are they compiling their documentation, figures, and statistics if our local people are not doing it?
Well, they have. I remember one. Let me give you an experience I have when I was High Commissioner of Canada. We were invited to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs a day, about 300 of us, for them to give reports on various regions and whatnot. And an official of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Canada got like, started talking about the Caribbean. He started describing the crime and crime and the murders and the mayhem. And I said, this that is not the Caribbean. That's not Barbados. So I got up and said, I challenged him. I said, you are making me seem as though my country, Barbados, is a failed state. It is not. These figures do not reflect the reality. All right, he told me, you know what he did? He said, well, these are all statistics that I was using based on a study of Jamaica, which is several years old. I said, you should apologize. I said, it's dishonest. I mean, some of my colleagues in the Caribbean told me after, man, I'm glad you said that first. God, they were too afraid to get up and challenge the man. It was so obviously wrong and false that what he was saying could not apply to anything in most of the Caribbean. But because he was saying it, they were supposed to, it was intellectual and professional laziness, and I told them that so. So these persons, as these consultants and experts, sometimes don't leave the office, but read newspapers, talk to people who belong to a certain group, and reflect that received wisdom as the gospel. Like, so therefore, I'm very skeptical about these kind of approaches being made. And the question too about reporting crime. One of the reasons that crime that that the governments and some travel agency can have to warn the public of crime, because in some countries they have a fiduciary responsibility. That's if a Barbadian tourist would have come from Chicago and had not been warned by a travel agency about the current situation of Barbados and got robbed, they could go back and say they were misled, false advertising. So time and all in order to protect themselves. Thing. But also, I do not believe, from my experience, investors, although I take care saying the importance and the damaging effects crime can have on the perception of a country or whatnot. All right. At the same time, people who are looking to invest or scout Barbados don't just read newspapers. They come themselves, they send people to go investigate sources and reports, and then they compile. So I'm saying any serious businessman, and they look the pros, the pros and the cons of the situation. So I don't think it is not as easily done. I don't fear it that much, because I think Barbados still has a lot to offer as a destination over and above places that which might have lesser crime or lesser different types of crime. And then if you watch the international news, I watch the British news, and I see reports on cities, London, crime and murder. So it's so you cannot conceal it in this day and age. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, but Glenn, I was just making some notes while you were speaking, because I experienced a similar sentiment when I sat in the International Commission on Human Rights conference room and saw what I call an elitist colonial lawyer walk in with the Barbados government representative and start to talk about Barbados. And I turned to the young lady on my left, young man on my right, Timon Howard, and Shakwani, and I said, I asked him, I said, which Barbados he's talking about? Where of course we were discussing this type of crime bill, and he talked about a country where the politicians just walk around the country and people just engage them and talk with them, and so there was no need for further national discourse and all that. The politicians are walking all over talking with them about, and I asked him, which Barbados you talking about? He
Well,
had no clue what he was talking about.
I saw that I read just that section, but
Yeah,
again I did not blame him, because he was the master's voice.
yeah,
That
I
those
get
who
it.
gave him that, the Edmund
Yeah,
Hickson and the
yes,
government
yeah,
who briefed him in that regard should be ashamed of themselves, because it was
yeah,
not truly reflecting Barbados. So
yeah.
he was just his
And
master.
I
He was
and I
working for
was
his
happy
retainer.
when I was happy when young Timon Howard looked across the room at him and called him and said he was intellectually dishonest.
Of course.
He was intellectually dishonest. But here's something I would like to throw to you guys. When things happen in our countries, Trinidad, Omar, you all have had a high increase in crime in Trinidad over the last several months. Jamaica, I think, has also suffered with it. Barbados is facing it. We get travel advisories galore issued because the United Kingdom, I think, Glenn, not too long ago, issued a travel advisory concerning Barbados, if my
Yeah,
mind serves
yeah.
me correctly.
Right.
Um, how come I don't hear a travel advisory for the United Kingdom? How come I don't hear a travel advisory for Spain or for Italy? How come I don't hear a travel advisory for the United States?
Uh, you're right. You're right.
How come? Are those countries, if you were to go back, and I'm sure I haven't done it, but I'm sure if you were to go back and look at the statistical information regarding crime in the United States of America, when we look at all the discourse going on concerning the southern border and the influx of the cartels and the gangs that are coming in, and the what's the drug again? The drug called again? Uh, Fentanyl, I think it is coming in and
Yeah.
killing all these young people and whatnot. How come there are no travel advisories issued for the United States? So when I travel there, I mean, we just had a situation, you will recall, there was just a case completed in New York with a young man who sought to protect the people on a train from another guy that seemed to have lost his mind. He seemed to be being psychologically not altogether there, and he threatened to kill people and whatnot. And my son is up in New York. So what would have happened to him on a train in New York? There was no travel advisory issued regarding the United States of America by the Barbados government. Not
Be,
one.
be, because the America is probably the greatest power in the world. So they
You,
call
you
the
understand?
the ruler dictates the narrative. All right.
Exactly. You see.
Apart from that, I think where this crime in the Caribbean is concerned, the high rate of crime in Barbados and the Caribbean, we have to admit that crime is the best organized business in the world. The best, most that is why it exists in every country, and no country has been able to snuff it out. So what we are doing, I know with all the technology, people get technical advice and assistance and guidance. So we are actually fighting the Americans. The Americans are they only come to the Caribbean because they want to stop any fentanyl from going to the Caribbean to America. But apart from that, as long as the Americans
They're
don't
not
get killed, they
interested.
don't kill. You
They're not
understand?
interested in what is going on down here.
No, right, right. Understand? So those are the realities that we are fighting an international issue, and even in Barbados, at least Trinidad has done a long time ago where they admit there were gangs. But even in Barbados, officialdom is still afraid to say we got gangs. We got groups and
But you
leaders of
remember,
groups making a farce of the whole thing.
Glenn and Umar, Kimar, coming back to you because I want to ask you something concerning the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and their complicit involvement in the establishing, well, not establishing, the advancing of all of this. But Umar, you remember there was recently an American bloggess in Trinidad who was doing a documentary, I think it was, on the
Right.
Trinidad gangs. Who arrested him? I don't think it was the gangs that arrested him. And didn't he
No, no,
spend
no.
time in jail for
Local,
interviewing some of your gang members in Trinidad and exposing what was happening in Trinidad?
the local law enforcement, they arrested him because too much was being revealed, and yeah, this is something that not just it's not just isolated in Trinidad and Tobago, but it's been proliferated throughout the Caribbean region.
Yeah, yeah.
Even in islands where they may perhaps appear that it's not the crime rate in Trinidad and Tobago and other parts of the Caribbean, but it is there and it's alive. And we have to understand that if it is allowed to continue, we are going to see high levels of crime, instances of crime in those very same Caribbean islands where crime is not an issue right now.
And I mean, as Glenn pointed out, it's a highly organized, successful business. But what it says to me, and in the clip we played earlier tonight, um, with the Prime Minister speaking here in Barbados. Glenn, you recall when she spoke about corruption in high places and in low places. It was not my words. It came right out of her mouth, which means that it would appear to me the prime minister is aware of corruption in high places, because to my mind, one of the ways that this criminal activity, organized criminal activity, can continue to be perpetuated is if they are able to infiltrate, as we heard Rose. I don't know what time you came in, Glenn. I don't know if Umar,
Yeah,
you
I
heard a
heard her.
bit of what Rose shared concerning some of the gang lords, so to speak, in a particular constituency in our country that made a decision they were no longer going to be supporting a particular candidate and change a candidate out, that type of thing. So there must be some involvement, cooperation in the political realm to facilitate the ongoing scourge of that criminal activity within the context of our countries. Kimar?
Yeah, yeah, Pastor Ferdinand. Um, well, this is it. Everything comes back to economics. So the trade of firearms, wars are money. So the trade of firearms, it comes back down to profit and money, right? If you manufacture firearms, you have an excess of firearms. You got to ship them somewhere and have them sold, right? You don't necessarily, are not necessarily concerned about the end result of the use of those firearms, but then if you come on a deeper psychological level, before there was mass access to firearms in the Caribbean, we had people still dying by the sword, right? So as times change, the weapon of choice changed. So today the weapon of choice is not a firearm. But so we need to ask ourselves, on a deeper level as a society, as a people, why are people prone to taking up firearms and using on one another? Because at one point in time they were using swords on each other, and at one point in time they were using knives on each other, right? So what is causing our people to do these things, Pastor Ferdinand, right? And then lastly, how can we combat the profit narrative, or the notion of corruption and profit, right? When, let's just say, a government benefits from having part of its society hooked on drugs, hooked on alcohol, right? Um, some in jail, some disabled, some educated, some trapped in like ghettos and low economic circumstances. Then you always have a created welfare state where a government could then distribute largesse to maintain power over certain parts of the masses. So the corruption is beneficial to maintain power.
You know, I know, believe it or not, Glenn, I just realized that we gone past our time. I mean, this is so interesting that I didn't even catch myself that we'd actually gone past that past
Okay.
10 o'clock. I'm not
Oh,
catching myself. But let me just close with this comment.
can I
You
have one more
remember,
comment before you go? Can I have
yeah,
one?
yeah.
You
Well,
go
you
ahead. You
you
want?
you you do yours, and then I'll close with mine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um, what we have to understand, first of all, the prime minister made. You said the prime minister made the observation that which equated to that an awareness of corruption in Barbados in high and low places. But Barbados has long since gone past the stage of awareness or talk. We want action. We want policies and
agreed,
program and staff.
agreed,
So, right, and
agreed.
I am much more interested in something well done than well said. That was well
Correct.
said. I want right
Correct.
now. The other thing is where Kimar was musing about, was speculating about or observing the change of technology being used by criminals. I know the gun, well, is now is now firearm now the weapon of choice, of a tool of trade. The point is that in the same way that we saw a whole generation or generation and a half of persons adopt the American dress, wearing their exposing their boxers and their behind, and that is part of the American gang and criminal culture. They
Yeah,
have
it is.
also
It is.
they've also been socialized about their about settling scores. And I picked up this by I'm gonna add quickly, well, end quickly. Some years ago, I started hearing the language of people talk about. People tell me to go to facts, and if you touch about, "Ma, you diss me." This is an Americanism for disrespect. So on Barbados, so that is why people say they go to dance, is touch a man's shoes, they want to kill you or beat you. Look at it, because they're socialized, they're imbibed, they take on this whole social behavior and values of America and just practice it among themselves as part of that socialization. So
Mhm,
we see the
mhm,
manifestation, the results of it.
mhm. And this is one of the reasons, when I heard what the prime minister, and folk, we're not picking on the prime minister for picking on the prime minister's sake. There are things that are being said, and I like what you said just now, Blind, that you prefer things that are well done rather than well said. I like that, and I've made a note of that. But during her presentation on Independence Day at Kensington Oval, she spoke to Jeffries from the United States Congress. I think he's a congressman,
Yeah,
and she made
Hakeem
a
Jeffries.
reference, Hakeem Jeffries, and she made reference to, and I'm paraphrasing, so I hope I've got it right. She hopes that they can address the matter of the Second Amendment that is a source of the proliferation of guns in the Caribbean. What? And I thought to
Mhm.
myself, what foolishness is this? Am I hearing? Since when does the legal, because the Second Amendment in the United States Constitution speaks
The
of the
right,
legal ownership
the right to
of
bear
weapons,
arms,
the right to
right?
bear
To bear,
arms,
right?
right? It is not, and as far as I know, the people who go in and get their certifications and so forth for guns are not the people who are selling the guns and proliferate the guns all over the place. I'm not saying there might not be one or two, and some of those gun people might not be working with them. But the point I'm making is that when people go in with the right to bear arms to protect, to protect themselves, to protect their household and so forth, and they do so, they do not then take those weapons and
Uh,
sell them and
export them.
export them.
Uh,
You know what I'm saying? And I thought it was ridiculous, to even suggest the idea that a change in the Second Amendment in the Constitution of the United States of America would treat to the issue of gun violence in the Caribbean. I couldn't believe my ears.
I don't think she understands the major role that that the guns and firearms play in the psyche of Americans, and not like that would, and that exporting guns is part of the business. It is to make money, it's to make profit, and it seems as though in that statement the prime minister had bought into the American term, which I've always objected, being in America's backyard. I want to be the front, host of front yard and what about the backyard. So, by the way, keep all the garbage and old stuff and broken down tractors and whatnot. So they probably think we in the backyard so they can dump anything in the Caribbean. But it's part of the business, the part of the international trade. Illegal, but very effective.
Well, gentlemen, I tell you, this has been it's been a tremendously integrated segment from the beginning. How everything has just flowed together so well, and we've gone past our time. I must tell you, I mean, it's a pleasant subject, but they tell you that the time flies when you're having fun.
Okay.
And I really have been enjoying the entire segment tonight. Coming from Rose, what Rose shared concerning Church Village, the lockdown in Church Village. Then Glenn, you came in, you picked it up and flowed right into my mind, right into what Umar was going to be sharing with the whole aspect of globalization. You ended up speaking concerning the bullying of technology, that type of thing, and then of course again flowing right into what you shared, Kimar, with regards to the IMF. And I want to thank all of you. I know Rose went off. I didn't see her come back, but I know that the situation for her with regards to Church Village was very personal. I mean, that's where she grew up. That's where she lived, and to see it happen in her community has been exceptionally distressing emotionally for her. So it doesn't surprise me, in terms of knowing, I know Rose and I know how she can respond to some of these things. And it has been extremely stressful to me. She called me just before the program tonight, and she was sharing with me. And you could hear the agony in her voice concerning where she grew up and what she saw happening there now. So I want to thank her, and I want to thank you, Glenn, for again just bringing us such tremendous background to some of the traditions of our old Barbados. Umar, what can I say? We look forward to sharing the next segment with you. And that, folk, by the way, we're taking a break next Monday because that would just be, I think, is that the day before Christmas?
It's
Next
two.
Monday is
Is
the
it
23rd.
23rd? Two
Is the
days before Christmas.
23rd? Yes.
Yeah.
So I believe, Marcia wants to give all of us a break to get, into our Christmas gear and Christmas mode, do our last minute shopping, that type of thing. So we won't be having a show next week, Monday. That's December the 16th. I
23rd.
believe. Sorry, December the
25th.
23rd. My apologies.
Right.
December the 23rd. Thank you, Glenn. But we will be resuming on December the 30th. And that will be the show that Umar will be joining us again to continue his presentation with regards to globalization and the implications and impacts that it's having within our ordinary communities. I saw someone making mention tonight on the thing concerning the educational system, schools, and what's being pushed into schools, and this will affect our children dramatically. So, want to thank you, Omar, for taking the time again to be with us. I have to call it now the loyal CARICOM opposition, Glenn, because we had Honorable Karita MacDonald on one night, Omar on, myself on, from Barbados, and him from Trinidad and Guyana, and the folk gave us the name, the loyal CARICOM opposition. So we, we,
I
we
think
have
I
a
think
new we
I
have a
think
new name.
I think you're doing better than the politicians. So I mean,
and now
more
we've draft
effective.
now Omar, we've drafted in an ex minister of state. So and of course we have our economists that we always absolutely enjoy sitting at the feet of and listening and learning from Kimar. And we want to thank you, Kimar, for coming in and revealing to us and showing to us what the IMF is engaging with regards to crime within the context of our Caribbean region. And of course, we want to thank all of you in the loyal opposition for being a part of the show tonight, because without you, we would not be able to have this show. So we want to sincerely thank you. And on behalf of the entire team, Umar, Honorable Karita, and some of her guests from Guyana, Umar and Nakid, and a couple of others from Trinidad, yourself, Glenn, Rose, Maxine, Kimar. Goodness, you start calling names and you run into trouble.
Don't forget Marcy
Yeah,
and Dave.
and Marcia and Dave. We can't
Right.
forget Dave. You really
Right.
can't forget Dave. Dave is the engine of this show. And we really want to, on behalf of our entire team, wish you all the best for this Christmas season, and encourage you to let this be a time of enjoyment. Let it be a time of reflection. We celebrate the birth of the Christ child, but he's not a child anymore. He's been in the life-changing business for donkey of years, and he continues to do that. And so we want to encourage you, to get out to your different locations for your Christmas celebrations. And as you will see on the screen that Dave is going to play in a moment, the People's Cathedral is having another presentation of the Singing Christmas Tree, and I am in it. Believe it or not, Glenn, you got to come one night
Oh,
and tell me if you think I still have the qualifications to be a proper singer. You have to come and let me know if I still have that capability and capacity. But I'll be doing a couple of numbers in that production. There's 7 of them. The dates are up there, and you can always revisit the YouTube recording and increase it, and you can see the dates there for the singing tree. Umar, one of these days we probably get to come to Trinidad and do it there. It's an extremely a beautiful experience to see the lights dancing to the rhythm of the music and all that kind of thing. It's remarkable. And to hear the renditions and so on. So, thank you all for being with us tonight. And we wish you all a great, great Christmas. God bless you. And may his presence be with you and be prosperous for the rest of this year. Be careful as you travel on the roads. Be very careful as you leave your belongings and so on. Just make sure you have your vehicle locked up. Make sure you secure your property, your homes. Have a great, great Christmas season on behalf of the entire Marcia Week Show team. God bless you and good night.
likewise, the same unto everybody.
God bless. Thank you, Glenn. Dave, you
Okay.
had a song to close us off with tonight. I remember you having one. I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot, but I don't know if you have that song to close off tonight that you shared with me. Great a cappella song, I think it was. Would love you to do that. Just going to give him a sec there, Glenn, to pull it up.
Okay.
Um, but he sent it to me earlier tonight, and I listened to it, and it was done. I think it was done by an African group. You're ready to go? Here it comes. Here it comes.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let us receive a King. Let everyone prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive a King. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive a King.
Ajakule cha etembe Muma wanga gona Galilava Ejiti wache Gatateneresa Gasanyuka
Joy to the world, the Lord has come. Let earth receive a
Joy to the world,
joy to the
joy to the world.
Lord has come.
Truth on your car, let us receive.
Joy to the world, everybody, now sing, everybody, hallelujah.
Joy to the world, the Lord has come. Let us receive.
To you, man, to Caesar, to tender. Joy to the world, joy to receive a King.
Joy to the world. Umar, we wish you a great, great Christmas in Trinidad. Pass it on to all of our Trinidadian friends. I have so many of them down there. Looking forward to having you join us on December the 30th. Until then, sir, Merry Christmas to you and your
Right on.
family and all. God bless. Good night. And good night to you, Glenn. Same to you, my
Thank you.
friend.
All right.
God
Thank
bless.
you.
Bye
Same to you.